Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. I'm very excited for tonight's episode. I usually am for every episode, but tonight's a special one. And normally I do my whole little long-winded intro with the wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, all that kind of stuff, but there's no time tonight. In the content creation world, when you're working with other people, sometimes you got to accommodate. Sometimes people are really busy. Sometimes people live in different time zones. My guest tonight is both of those things. He is tremendously knowledgeable, tremendously busy, also lives on the opposite side, basically, of the United States. So for those of you tuning in live, I know we have a little bit of a different start time tonight. I know normally we're at the 7 p.m. Eastern start time, but tonight we're 6. So we're accommodating that for our tremendous guest to lead off the show, also accommodating my normal intro and all those things. As I mentioned on Twitter, back half of the show, I will have Mr. Sterling Furrowh from the Hoof, also of Cover One. We're going to dive into some Bills bye-week status things in terms of position grouping, strengths, weaknesses, things to worry about, things to appreciate, expectations, who's overachieved, who's exceeded, who's fallen below, all that kind of stuff. But more to come with that later. For now, as I mentioned, quick little intro just to get into the show. And I'm going to pull up and change the banner at the bottom because I have a tremendous guest, as I mentioned, Mr. Nate Tice of the Athletic Football Show, a tremendous follow on the old Twitter. Nate, as I just mentioned offline, I want to say it again for the people. There are, few people in life in general, but especially in like football and social media who I genuinely respect and appreciate, and who teach me things and present the game in a way that's digestible and entertaining and insightful at the same time. And you are one of those people. You're amazing. And I basically just wanted to invite you here so I could tell you how amazing you are for the next half hour, if you're cool with that.
I appreciate that. I think in wrestling terms, that's getting put over, and I appreciate you putting me over right now. Yeah, and I know how much you love the Midge content, so I thought that was really the primary
My wife
purpose.
wanted me, I told her it wouldn't happen. There was no shot. She wanted me to ask if there was anything we could do to acquire Midge.
Oh, I know. I wish she's on the kitchen table right now. I think she's passed out. This is her nap time. She times up her sleeping from 1 o'clock to about 5.
Okay.
And then she becomes a monster from like 5 to 8. And then it's like she just runs around. She just wants to go outside and everything. But she knows my wife's work schedule. She's like, oh, it's 5. All right, I know she's coming home soon. She gets all stretched up, getting ready
Warms
to be loud.
up, does a couple push-ups.
My wife comes home and goes, she's been sleeping all day. And I'm like, yeah, she hasn't made a peep in 5 hours. I promise. It's like, yeah, we know who her favorite is.
I love like how mischievous cats are. Like they know what's up and they're like, no, I'm cool. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to cause hell for this other person.
Yeah, she knows her name very selectively. She has selective hearing. Yeah, I know. She's like an old stubborn woman. It's great. She's awesome. She's phenomenal. She's the best.
I honestly, even if you didn't know anything about football and didn't like wrestling, I'd probably follow you just for the Midge content that you posted. It's that next level. It's that elite.
That's how I sucker you in.
Yeah, right. That's like, come for the adorable cat and then stay for my football takes and analysis and videos. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love that you mentioned wrestling. I want to get personal with you to start this episode. I have 2 questions. 1, favorite wrestler of all time. 2, favorite match of all time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Favorite wrestler. This is always hard for me. I was a big Macho Man guy, Randy Savage, growing up. But I watched
him in Twitter bio, the little elbow
shot reference. I watched him in WCW too, and then as I've gotten older, I watched old WWF matches, and I liked him even more now.
Okay.
But I love Bret Hart. I was always been a big Chris Jericho guy.
Okay.
Always been a big Eddie Guerrero guy. And then as far as like, I really liked Edge when he was with the Brood.
Oh, classic!
Before he even became like big, I was a big Edge.
Sick intro. The Brood was sick. So underrated as a group.
Best theme song ever. And especially when I was like 10, 12 years old, I was like awesome vampires. I had just seen Blade, and so I was like,
same. I was like, I want to be Blade, and then I also want to wrestle and be a vampire. This is amazing.
Perfect. This is exactly. I was that target market.
I'm the demographic. Yeah.
Yep. They nailed me. But then Edge and Christian became even something beyond that. But yeah, I have a lot of those guys. I was a big cruiserweight guy in WCW. That was kind of what got me into wrestling. Okay. And then my dad was awesome because he was a big Ric Flair guy.
Okay.
And he hated Hulk Hogan. So it was awesome because he was like, he loved all the heels. And so it was as a kid, he like taught me what to appreciate in wrestling. Okay. He's like, you don't want the guys that always win. That's boring. You want the guys that can talk and the guys that can do stuff in the ring. And then, I was like, okay, that's why I was a Macho Man guy. It made sense. Favorite match though might be one that happened like a month ago. It was the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks. at the
All Out.
pay-per-view at
Yeah.
All Out in September. That was one of the greatest matches. I think it is the greatest match I've ever watched. For sure, the greatest match I've ever watched live.
Okay.
I've watched some older matches or like replays, and I'm like, okay, that was incredible. But I think that's my favorite. That or the first Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels.
Oh, good one.
That would probably be my other one. Yeah, those are the ones that I remember very vividly.
Dude, everything you said is like jiving with me so hard. Like to backtrack with it, like that Lucha Bros, and we're gonna get into football stuff, everyone. I know that's
right.
But we need to geek out for a minute. That Lucha Bros Young Bucks match, I haven't obviously I watch wrestling from the perspective of appreciating it for the athleticism and the storytelling. Yes. But I was into that match like I didn't know it was scripted.
I actually marked out. I think
same.
I've never used that term, but I've only done that like twice.
When they were going to take out Phoenix and Penta stepped in front of him, like, no, not my brother. Oh, dude, I got goosebumps even friggin' thinking about it.
They showed Penta and he's bleeding, and it's just like, oh, everything about it. Everything.
I wanted them to win so hard. And I'd seen them at All Out a couple years ago when they faced the Young Bucks in a ladder match, and I've seen so many AEW shows live and in person and gained such a appreciation for them to sort of see them ascend the mountaintop and climb it like that. Sick.
Agreed. And they might be wrestling FTR at this next pay-per-view. And that's
the Super Ranas that just took the AAA titles.
Yeah. That's crack for me is FTR. I love old school wrestling. And then I also love cruiserweight lucha stuff.
Yep,
and
same.
so it's this is just my perfect
merging
blend.
Of both.
Yeah. And they're both so good at what they do. So if that's the leaked Tony Khan pay-per-view had that as the next match. So I'm that's what I can't wait for. I'm just that circled star.
That would be
dotted.
Sick. So good. Yeah, it's marked on the calendar. I love I'm a big WCW guy too. I appreciate I love that you love WCW. I love that your Twitter icon is you rocking that Monday Night Nitro shirt, classic font.
Which shrunk and I can't wear it as much anymore. Yeah, I have to get fit. I'm skinny fat right now as CM Punk.
Do whatever you can to wear that shirt. Just put a picture of that's your vision board, just that shirt.
It is. That was mid pandemic, and so it was I was in a special type of shape right there because I was running every day. I couldn't lift, and so it was that shirt was nice. And then I dried it once, and then I was like, I can't wear this anymore. Yeah,
it's over. I love that you're
the picture though.
Yeah, so you can save that forever. I love that your dad was more heel based. My dad, my dad loved Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
He would always, even from when I was little, though, always be like, no, wrestling's scripted. You can't really punch another man in the face. Your hand will break. So he was realistic, but he marked out for Hogan.
Okay.
And I will never forget and when I used to get super into wrestling, I was a little kid at the time. He'd be like, Anthony, come on, it's scripted, blah, blah, blah. But when Hulk Hogan was the third man, when he dropped that leg, I will never forget this. So, because my older brother was the whole day, Dad, it's going to be Hogan. Dad, it's going to be Hogan. My dad was like, shut up. No, it's not. Because my older brother was trying to
even Bobby the Brain tried to tell him.
Right? Whose side is he on? Everything.
Yes.
Hogan drops that leg drop. And my dad, who was always just well, it's scripted. It's cool, but it's scripted. My dad stands up, yells a profanity I cannot repeat here, throws the remote, guns it at the TV, and storms out.
Oh, man.
Because he was so upset that Hogan was the third man in
Bash
turn.
at the Beach is it's
Bash
ingrained.
At the Beach 96 is his I don't know, crossing the Rubicon, but in a negative way. He just he was so mad and just...
It's his childhood ended, even though he was an adult with kids. Yeah.
And that's what's so awesome about wrestling. The fact that it could we're so captivated by that Lucha Brothers Young Bucks match. And then my dad, who was at that time in his early 40s, and the fact that he's no, it's scripted, it's cool, but it's scripted. The fact that he was brought to such I've only seen him react like that for the Music City Miracle and bad things that happened to the Bills and the Red Sox and the Sabres. And the fact that he did that for wrestling, I immediately was oh man, little me was oh man, this is important. Look how upset my dad got. They got him.
Mark Henry did the fake retirement once, and it was such a throwaway story and everything. But even that moment was it's burned into my brain because it's that was awesome. That, and that's what wrestling can do. Wrestling can just do. It's you put up with a lot of crap. Because when you come out on the other side, Andy Dufresne and Shawshank, it's it's just amazing. Yeah, thank you. It's the best. It's so hard to describe that to people, but when you're just if they do it right,
Yes.
it's nothing's better.
No,
It's like so hard to
it's
top.
art and sports at the same time. Yeah, when a good storyline or a good match pays off, man, it's so good.
Like a visceral reaction. It's
Yes,
so much,
you
so
just
much in
feel it.
sports. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
feel it. Like even you talking about like Lucha Bros and Bucks, like, yeah, my
I
hair
know.
started standing up. I got goosebumps.
Well, and I started thinking of old matches, and then it was like, you're like, oh, we're the best matches. And I'm like, okay, like even the Iron Man match, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, I was like 7 years old, and I still remember it. Like I still remember it.
Bret Hart's my favorite, so that match destroys me and breaks my heart.
And I hated Shawn Michaels. I
Same,
always did.
same.
So,
And I'll never forget. I'll never forget my dad because when Bret comes back, my dad and my brother being like, he's gonna lose now, and I was like, shut up, you don't know, like he'll win, and then he loses, and I was oh man,
I was a wreck. I couldn't believe it.
Went that Montreal screw job, everything. When Bret left WWF, it broke my heart. Like no pun intended. Oh God, man, I know. This is one of the few times I'm genuinely upset that we have to talk about football because I just want to keep talking about wrestling.
I did this to Bill Barnwell once too, where we talked soccer and wrestling for like the first 20 minutes, and he's like, "Hey, dude, like he's like, we gotta get going."
Dude, I was gonna say you shouldn't mention soccer because then we're gonna get on another tangent, and everybody's gonna be like, "Where's the Bills and AFC talk? What show am I watching? What is happening?"
Disguised coverage was literal. We're saying we're talking football. We're going
I like
from
that.
there.
It's all a lie.
Yeah,
whatever. I should do that. Whatever I market the show as is false, and they're gonna be like, "You keep lying to the people." I'm like, "Oh, it's called disguised coverage for a reason." Like you're not picking up on it. You mentioned Mark Henry and things, burned into your brain.
Yes.
The Bills loss to the Titans is burned in my brain right now. Granted, it's recent. Granted, it's fresh. But the Bills came off such a high, and a fan base came off of such a high after beating Kansas City and kind of vanquishing, even though it's regular season, but vanquishing that foe and the throne holder in the AFC. And then they have this loss to Tennessee where they didn't play terrible, but I thought they weren't. Defensively, they did not look like what they had been. They had not adjusted well in the second half. Tennessee really had their way with them in the passing game and in the run game. Offensively, we've seen the Bills for another game now be inefficient when it comes to the red zone and settle for field goals instead of touchdowns. I know I mentioned some of the things there, but in looking in that Bills-Titans game, I also know you just tweeted like a half hour ago, Jeffrey Simmons cheating inside to make a play on that fourth down stop, and I wanted to throw my phone through the window. But, I guess just from you, what's your initial reaction from a Bills perspective, or even a Titans perspective? What's your initial reaction to, that Bills-Titans game?
NFL's hard.
Yeah, that's true. Any given Sunday or Monday, I guess.
Any given Sunday or Monday. It's a very hard league to get up for every single week. So you have these games. It is what it is. It's not, the sky is not falling on the Bills. Like they are still a very good team. I think that this exposed some, it's very hard to defend the Titans, Derrick Henry. That's the thing. They are such a unique offense that it's almost like you have to look at them as like in a college defense having to prepare for a service academy where it's like, okay, guys, we have to defend this specific thing. Some teams can do it. Some teams can get the game script that goes for them where they can't run the ball every time. They have to start throwing because they only get so many possessions.
I'm a Miami College fan, and I say that every time we would play Georgia Tech. I'll be like, why can't we? What is going on? Like, I don't understand.
They're just still in the game somehow. And it's like, oh, we're up 10. We're good. They have to run the ball, but it's like, oh yeah, Derrick Henry can rip off an 80-yard gain. That's just a triple option play getting pitched out and right down the sideline. Same thing. But that's kind of what it is. I think this Bills team is, their defense, of course, isn't going to be as historic as those numbers look to start. Like, it just is what it is. Like,
but they are sustainable.
It's not. They are a good defense, though, and they're not as bad as it looked on Monday because that is just a unique circumstances. It's a Monday night game. NFL is just freaking hard. It just is. But they are a good defense. Like they're more of a sum of their parts type defense, which is good, which I think is a good thing. And I think injuries happen, but that's the thing, is they have enough talent to surround that it helps them. And I think offensively, they're still figuring out what they are. We're only a third of the way through the season. And I think they try to tweak some things, and they leaned all the way into being a spread it out and go kind of team. And then they kind of realized the Steelers right away just goes, oh, we're going to get you out of that. And it's kind of like, I think they thought they could get through September just doing that. And then maybe by the bye week readjust. But I think they're like, oh shoot, our hand got forced pretty quick. Whoops. To their credit, they have tried to adjust. I still think they're trying to figure it out. I think we can get into it. I think it's maybe in a later question, but it's might as well just say it now, is they want to go 5-man protections and get it to their fast, really good route runners. I get what they're trying to do. Josh Allen can do that too. It's just that when they live in that world, defenses have started to simulate pressure, not even just bring pressure, but just bring 4 and drop somebody.
Tennessee did that multiple times. They just rush 4 and bring the nickel corner or corner outside, and then it was drop just somebody. Free rush to Josh Allen because, 1,000%.
And that's what the Steelers did. That's what the Steelers did week 1. So it's kind of funny how the 2 games that they had, the rough games, it was the same kind of thing. And Josh Allen is smart enough and can get the ball off quick enough and athletic enough and big enough. He has all these traits that you're okay. Yeah, you're okay with that a couple times. Like, you're fine with that because he can operate. It's just hard to live like that for 10 reps a game. When you call the ball, you only get about 60-ish plays a game. If a sixth of them are the quarterback having to throw hot, that's not good. That's all. You can win, but it's tough. You're just making it hard because it's what happened to the Cardinals for a little bit when Cliff first got to the league. Cliff Kingsbury was every time they're on third down, they would have to throw hot, and then defenses would just tackle them, and it would be, okay, punt, 4th and 3. All right, they're punting.
Get off the field.
Get off the field. We're fine. Oh, you completed the ball. Good. You threw it hot, though, and we just tackled them. Boom, that's all.
Yeah, 4th down punt.
it helps that they got some better players that have kind of nullified some of that.
Yeah, I would say that helps the talent. The talent.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins breaking 3 tackles can help you out a little bit. But I think the Bills, it kind of creeps up a couple times when they get put in those situations and they have to throw short as opposed to, and it works sometimes, but if you play a defense that's on your game or your ball gets tipped or just like Allen has to double clutch and then break contain, it just can make it hard. And sometimes it just gets exposed throughout the game. I still think this offense is good. They're just, again, figuring out what they are. And then, but I always just think this team is going to be in every game. Like it's almost impossible for them not to, as long as they have that quarterback and as long as that defense is going to be how they play. It's just that it's hard to win every single week.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that's like that winning every week is a hard thing. I feel like people don't realize that. And I think Bills fans are so mercurial in a loss means the sky is falling. A win means we're invincible and we're going all the way to the Super Bowl and it's finally going to happen. And everything it's not black and white like that. It is that gray. And I think to piggyback with that point there, I think like a silver lining we've been trying to take away is that the Bills didn't play good in this game and they still had a very, very strong chance to win this game. The game went almost, in terms of game script, almost went ideally what Tennessee wanted in terms of what they were able to do offensively. And they still only won by 3. So trying to take away those little nuggets, but I love that you mentioned the simulated pressure look from Tennessee. It got Buffalo, especially in the beginning of the game. It got them down in the red zone as well. And they're also their ability, this show is called Disguise Coverage, and part of that reason is because of what Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer do in that Bills defense. Tennessee did a great job of that, showing pre-snap man and switching to zone post-snap and vice versa. They confused the offensive line and protection schemes. I think they confused Josh Allen. There were even a couple snaps where Cole Beasley, who's so great at reading defenses and leveraging,
was doubled.
Was doubled, and a couple snaps.
He's like double running his route. He was like hesitating, and then he was like, "Okay," and then he would go.
And someone would come and he'd be like, "Okay, I'm a hot route. No, I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to keep running the dig."
Exactly. And Josh was thinking like, "Okay, he's going to hitch up, and I'm going to throw it." No, I can't. Like they caused that indecision and that inefficiency from the Bills' offense, and so credit to them. They won that game, and it comes down to. Oh, that stupid 4th down, which, hindsight is always 20/20 on what you should have done and, what could have happened. But, what was your thought there on that 4th down? Do you like going for it? Do you like the sneak call? I know a lot of fans were up in arms, but Josh Allen prior to that was 13 of 14 on QB sneaks on 4th down converting. Like the only time he didn't was a botch snap against the Jets. Like you've got this gargantuan QB. That's a high percentage play. But yeah, I mean, granted hindsight's 20/20, but what were your thoughts there on that 4th down?
Yeah, exactly. It's hindsight's 20/20. I do think even the numbers say it was a pick 'em, basically what it is. And the 13 to 14 stat more than anything, I think I saw some other number. I think it was like over 90% or whatever it was. It's a cheat code. Usually it's like, okay, we're guaranteed short yardage is really hard in the NFL. It's really more like, I think a lot of defensive coaches especially think, oh, we got a good old line. We got, and we can just pound the rock and we just get big and pound the rock. It's 100%. And really it's more like 60% or less, like even less than that. And
nowhere near guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. And so having a QB sneak be able to hit 90% is kind of like a cheat code. It just has the Patriots for 2
I was gonna say
decades.
Brady every freaking
Yeah,
week.
Bills fans have gotten pounded with it. I mean,
Yeah.
when my dad was with the Vikings, with Culpepper, up until like 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, they would just QB sneak it because Culpepper was just a little fullback with them. And
Yeah, it was a monster. Like use
yeah,
your monster athletic QB and cheat
exactly.
and just get your yard.
Yeah, and when you look at it, you're like, well, you know, they kick the field goal. Our defense is good, or we have a good defense. But you have to look at how this game was flowing. They really were struggling to give an answer for the run game of the Titans. Like the Titans were going at them. They were taking advantage of 2 high coverages and running duo, which is more of a at you run. And they were kind of just like picking their, like it was just Derrick Henry was just taking advantage of that. Like one guy, if you're in a 2 high coverage, the safeties have to fill. Safeties don't fill right. Bad
Even
things
when
can
they
happen.
would fill right and he was breaking tackles
Bounce right
at the
off of
line, second level. Yeah, I think that I love that point, not to, stop you there, but if the Bills kick a field goal there and we go to OT and Tennessee gets the ball first, at that point I had no faith that the Bills are stopping Tennessee.
It could be one play. Like I know that's odds of no, that's not going to happen, but it's just that's what. Yeah, and that's the thing with Derrick Henry. It's not just eye test. It's statistical at this point. Is that this is what when he's an all or nothing running back. You either have to build a whole offense around him, or you can barely use him because he's not great. As big as he is, he's actually not great in pass protection. Like as far as like what he does with that, so he limits you as much as he gives to your offense. But the thing is, once that offense gets rolling, it's the juggernaut. Like it just goes and goes and goes and goes on you, and it is hopeless because they have 3. It's like a fastball pitcher with like 3 fastballs or 3 different pitches that are all out pitches. Like they have, but theirs is it's like Randy Johnson. They have a 100-mile fastball and like a 93-mile-per-hour slider. And that's what the Titans can do with Derrick Henry. They have not, it's not it's like, oh, just take away outside zone. They can't do anything. It's like they can go to different runs with him. That's really, really hard to stop once they get rolling. So that's why I don't hate the decision as much. It's a good play for the Bills, and also just knowing what the defense was going through, like, trying to stop Derrick Henry in that offense.
Yeah.
And just they have the big play guys on the outside. You always have to keep that in mind too. It's a Julio or AJ Brown dig route from going 40, 60 yards.
Yeah. I think that's what makes this game even more frustrating, especially knowing that like Julio was out for a large majority of the game, especially in the second half. Like I think once going into the year when it was just like AJ Brown and Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, and then they acquire Julio, like you knew what you were, the fastball analogy is great with Henry, but then with the offense as a whole, like, what it is. Like, okay, it's going to be Henry, AJ Brown, Julio.
It's all
That's
big plays.
Pretty much it. Big plays. They're going to try and gouge you. They're going to try and establish the run. They're going to work some play action and attack the middle with crossers and drags and all that stuff. And that's it. And if you can beat it, you can beat it. They don't have a ton of weapons in the arsenal, but the weapons they do have are all plus weapons and out pitches, like you said. And in the second half for Tennessee, they just kept getting those out pitches, whether it was the run or AJ Brown just continuously running open in the middle of the field, which was something that the Bills defense struggled with last year, but this year had been so much better. And what I also thought was really interesting, the Bills continued in especially the first half against Tennessee, things that they did against Kansas City the week prior. Some of the things actually that Tennessee was successful with on defense against the Bills offense. So the Bills showing, that pre-snap cover 3 look and then switching and running that cover 1 robber that they were so successful with. It led to the Micah Hyde pick 6 against KC. It led to the Jordan Poyer 4th down stop earlier in the game against Mahomes. They ran that successfully. They started doing those things to Tennessee, and then they would show man drop into a zone and it worked. And then all of a sudden in the second half, none of that seemed to work anymore. And, I know you grind film, as, evidenced by, again, that you took that all 22 footage of Jeffrey Simmons making that play on 4th down and stabbed me in my heart and in my face and in my back. But, that second half, everything really turned. Do you think that was, attributed to the Bills defense just kind of wearing down, or Tennessee making those halftime adjustments, coming out and kind of repositioning and course correcting and starting to do what they do best?
I think it's a little, I hate being like this, a little column A, little column B. Yeah. It's just the natural physics of Derrick Henry. I mean, that's the war of attrition that he is. But also what they kind of do in their run game, or at least really in their play action game as well, is it's kind of like they check ones off. They're like, start with 5, the Titans being them. And then they go like, okay, that's not working. That's not working. Okay, we're running these 2. And then we're just doing that. And, got them. And then we're going from there. The game that was most in that was against the Seahawks. They were Jamal Adams was kind of coming off the edge a couple of times. They were kind of getting overflowed. So they were like, okay, we'll just run wind back and we'll just seal them off. And they ran it like 3 or 4 times in the second half. That's kind of how they adjust that. they know what they are. Even with the limitations of that offense, just kind of what they do. It's like the thing when you know what you are, it's really nice to counter off of it because you're like, okay, this isn't working. We'll just go to this. We'll just go to option B because we know option A isn't working. And that's kind of what they did. And I'd say with the passing game stuff, what you're saying, going over the middle, when you want to do what the Bills want to do on base downs, and you put a lot on the linebackers and those safeties to read stuff and play action, especially a team that kind of hits those quick hitters. It's not the long play action where guys can rally back. So if the linebacker flows up and then goes, oh shit, and I have to get, I'm sorry for swearing, has to get back into coverage. Okay, oh, I'm looking back. What the Titans do, it's quick hit, it's a quicker play action, and then it's right behind you. So they don't let you rally back. And this Bills defense puts a lot on that second level defenders to come up and down, up and down, up and down.
Great point.
Yeah, that's kind of why it was just a bad matchup. It's like styles make fights. It's just that's kind of what happened to them.
It's so funny. Like coming into the season, I had this game marked as a loss because of who the Titans were stylistically, literally against like the Bills defense. But then, it seemed like the Bills defense this year was back to being that 2019 defense that carried them to the playoffs. And it was like, okay, it's back a little bit. Tennessee comes into this game struggling a little bit. And you're thinking, okay, like, maybe it's not a stylistic disadvantage in this game. And then to your point, it's not that. And
it's happening again.
That's literally, I literally was like, I watched him bust off that first touchdown run and then every AJ Brown catch in the second half. And I was just like, literally, it's happening again. Like, this is what it is. And it's interesting too. I feel like a lot of people if they see Tennessee, especially when they struggle, as well, they're too simplistic. They're just relying on Derrick Henry. But what they do a good job of, and what can be an advantage sometimes, is if teams know what you're going to do, exactly to your point, you can Jedi mind trick them and play games and be like, oh, you think we're going to do this? We're not going to do that. Look at I mean, granted, it's one play in the context of the game. The Joe Mixon touchdown pass from Furrowh against the Lions this past week. They go for that fourth down. The Lions stack the box, crowd the line. They go play action. Everybody's committed. Mixon keeps going right out to the flat, and nobody is near him. Like if people expect something and this is their tendency, and you break that tendency, which is what ironically the Bills did a lot the previous week against Kansas City in terms of their coverages on defensive things that worked. You can really put teams in a bad way, and Tennessee executed their plan and then broke tendencies when they needed to. And then just went literally broke tendency almost just to break tendency. And they're like, okay, we're just going to go back to these two things, and they're going to keep hitting and keep hitting and keep hitting.
And with the Titans offense, they have more similarities to the Rams than people realize in the sense, not this year's Rams offense, but maybe the last two-ish years with Goff back there, in the sense that they try to make everything look similar. And then they run the 2 or 3 runs off of that.
Yeah.
And, they don't do it to the extent the Rams was at 11 personnel mostly, and then some 12. And while the Titans wanted to be in 21 or 12 and just by necessity, really, it's that they try to make everything look the same. And all these motions, all these formations, then it's okay, what do we play against? Is it the run? Is it the second run? Is it the quick hitting play action? Is it the change up off that play action? Or is it the screen to Henry? And so that's when, and just kind of going off the point earlier I had, like putting so much strain on those linebackers are really just off ball defenders. Then can't fully commit to running. So often, I just got hit with that jab a couple times. I was waiting for the hook, and I'm just getting peppered with that jab. They just keep hitting me in the jab. No, I'm not going to let them hit the hook on me. All right, now I got to start defending against the jab, and then okay, here comes the hook, and then it's just like that's kind of what they do to you. And it's just I know, and that's the thing is the best teams, the best units are game script independent. That's why the Chiefs offense is the Chiefs offense. They can go down 17 and they can just and be right back in the game. The Titans are very game script dependent on their offense. But the thing is, if they got you in almost a neutral or they're in one score game, they can do whatever they want to you. If they got you where they want. So it's like again, they're just like, that's the difference though, is like these elite offenses and these just like more feisty offenses. And I think that's more what the Titans were. But then as we've talked about a couple times, is that they got to a game script where they could be more than feisty and just start snowballing on you.
And when you've got playmakers that are that athletic and that fast, like AJ Brown and Julio and Derrick Henry, all you need from a defense is just that literal split-second hesitation to be like, wait, is it going up? He's gone. Like, and you're done.
Stretches the advantages.
Yep. All they want is Tremaine Edmonds or Matt Milano to take 1 or 2 steps forward for the play action. They don't even have to fully commit. They just want 1 or 2. They're going to slip AJ Brown, boom, quick hitter, and then he takes a 7-yard catch and he can turn it into 15 or house it if you don't take the right angle. Yeah, everything really worked there for them. And again, we mentioned Kansas City game, the opposite of that. The Bills, I was listening to you and Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show talk right after that Bills-Chiefs game. You guys talked about how complete of a team Buffalo was and how good of a game that they played. I know you mentioned in the beginning here that the sky's not falling for them, but where do the Bills rank holistically in this AFC? I think at this point everybody knows kind of the players. Maybe Cleveland's fallen off a little bit, especially with the injuries, but Kansas City and the Bills and the Ravens and people are liking the Chargers, but Tennessee is still there a little bit. Where do you see the Buffalo Bills in terms of the power structure of the AFC?
Yeah, it's those 3. It's Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, and some order. It would be a little ballsy to say the Chiefs are up there or the top 1 because they're more like, that's more of a long-term play.
Okay.
But I would say if I were picking one team right now, I would say it is the Bills still.
Okay.
Just the instance I brought up before is that this defense being more of a sum of their parts, still it's just all solid to good players. And that's a good thing to have. That's going to just keep you in every game. And also how they play. They're not extremely aggressive. They're more making the offenses beat them, and that's why you got to credit the Titans for what they did. But it's going to keep them in every game. And on the flip side, you have Josh Allen. It's like, that's why it's like, that's you. If we can't like what's happening with the Bills offense, the up and downness of it, Josh Allen is still doing really, really good things. His eyes are still good. He's still like fairly accurate. I mean, good accuracy. That hasn't dropped off completely. I think the ones where it has fallen off have been the ones where he's had to move out of the pocket. And like we said, those hot throws that have come up. So it's more of a scheme thing, I think, than a talent thing. I think Deion Dawkins is ascended. Like, I think that's a good left tackle. It's like they have these good players and they've leaned into what they are. And I think they're a team that after the bye week, their offense will kind of regroup and then shoot back up where we maybe what they think they are. So that's why I think overall they just got to stay healthy, as all these teams do. Ravens have retooled. They're good in a different way than I thought they would be, not just passing game wise, of course, with Lamar, but defensively they are what they are. They run man coverage. They bring 5 on pressure.
They've also overcome so many injuries.
So many injuries.
Unreal.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I know.
I know they are cursed, but they always have Lamar, and that's the thing is you got to bet on these quarterbacks. As much as we want to say all these teams, it really is you just follow the quarterback play, and you just go, well, this guy's going. I mean, just look at the Cardinals. I mean, it's basically the Kyler show right now.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and again, we might get into it in a sec, but it's just with the Chiefs too. It's that defense is not going to be as bad as this historic level. They've already improved this last week. Like, I know Washington's Washington, but they have improved. And Mahomes is playing at a historic level. It's just that we have become so
accustomed to him being like superhuman.
Yeah, we don't really see what he's actually doing. It's pretty remarkable what he's doing in order. But if I had to do it, I would have Bills as 1 and then Ravens, Chiefs 2A, 2B. But it's just they're tight. And then there's a gap, I think, between the next teams. But I think those three are in the same tier.
Gotcha. I know we're starting to wind down here a little bit. I'm going to adjust because I know I got to get you out of here. I want to build off that.
I have time if you want to go longer, so I'm good.
Oh, that would be
I got another 10, 15 minutes if you want to go.
I want to stay with, actually, we'll stick with KC first. Perfect. You mentioned that defense piece already. My thing, everything with everyone, whether you're killing it or you're terrible, eventually everybody regresses to the mean somehow in some way. And then, mentioning, hearkening back to your point on the Bills earlier, then you start to settle into who you are, whether it's good or bad, and that's who you are. The Chiefs defense was historically bad to start this year. I think they will start to level out a little bit. But do you think even when they do start to course correct and level out a little bit and aren't historically so terrible, is that defense enough to hold Kansas City back from going to the Super Bowl again or potentially winning it all again? Or is it are they capable of doing just enough to allow Mahomes and the Chiefs offense to just carry them to the promised land like they have?
Yeah, I think they can get just enough because that whole defense is built on creating turnovers. It's not as about as it's almost like the flip of the Bills defense. The Bills defense gets it done. They do create the turnovers because they're so well coached and so many smart players. That defense is more philosophically bend don't break. And the Chiefs defense is the complete flip. It's get the ball back as quick as possible.
Aggressive, turn you over, get it back to Mahomes, run it.
Yes, it's the 90 feet of hell or whatever it was in basketball. Full court press them.
Yeah.
Well, full court press them. If they beat us for a layup right away, okay, whatever. We'll shoot a three right back on their faces coming back. That's kind of what they go for. Spags is a good coach. I think it's just this defense is their linebacker. They're getting very poor linebacker play. And in a defense that brings a lot of pressure, you're putting a lot on your linebackers to find the right guys and sort out numbers. And I do think they've improved a little bit, but it's still that's going to be a big issue for them going forward. They just they're just so lack playmakers on there as much as Tyrann Mathieu is a good player. Frank Clark is not worth what he's been paid or what he got traded for. Chris Jones is a good player. It's just that other than that, it's like, all right, who makes the big play for him? You need role players to step up, as Bills fans have seen this year. It's like when you have these random guys step up, that's what you need.
And that's what they got last year. The L'Jarius Sneed stepped up big. You had Juan Thornhill making all these
out of nowhere.
Yep. Like, oh my God, what a great pick. And then they've regressed. And all of a sudden it's like, we don't have it's almost the opposite of the Bills defense, which is everybody does their 1/11th sum of their parts. The Chiefs defense is just, we've got certain studs at certain levels who are going to make plays. And then we just need a couple random plays from these other guys and we'll hope we're okay.
And I think it's going to be, they're hoping for it to be more like those Saints early 2010 teams with just chaos on defense. Sometimes we get let up 40, but sometimes we just steamroll the other team because we created 4 turnovers, 3 sacks, and a fumble, and then our offense just blew them out.
Breeze did his thing, and we put up 50.
That's kind of what they're built as, and so it's just gonna be a high variance defense. But this offense though is ridiculous. I mean, I tweeted a couple stats today, but I mean they're 60% on third down, which is all. It's ridiculous. Mahomes is scrambling at a rate like he just gets a first down like on half his scrambles, which is ridiculous. They're averaging 3.14 points per drive. It's like if this is what they look like when the sky is falling, it's like, oh my God, this is they might go nuclear on offense. Like if they stop turning the ball over. So
and that's the worry there. Like I keep a lot of Bills fans, and even radio here in Buffalo and things. It was like, well, now I want the Chiefs to, beat the Chargers or do these things, or I want these kind of things because I want them to get back because I'm not worried about KC. And I was like, I am very much still worried about KC. Yeah. I don't want them to win another game, knock them down the peg. I don't want to see them in the playoffs because if they hit when they're capable of hitting, they're arguably unstoppable.
They blitzkrieg you. It's just overwhelming. It's just,
and you're done. Look at, I mean, Houston, they were up 24-0. In that 2019 playoffs, and then you changed the channel and you came back.
They lost by 20, I think.
Yeah, they got wrecked. You cannot underestimate them or overstate how strong of a juggernaut they are. And I think a lot of people just, maybe I don't even think it was because of the Bills loss, like the Ravens loss and the Chargers loss, and then the Bills loss, and their defense is so bad. I feel like a lot of people are writing off Kansas City, and they should not be written off. Especially if you look at the context, they're a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumble against the Ravens from beating the Ravens again like they have year after year. In the same type of games, Baltimore always drags them to the finish line, and then Kansas City just does what they need to at the end to cross first. And even the game against the Chargers, which I know the Chargers won, obviously, even though they tried to give the game away almost weirdly at the end. The turnovers, they tried. There was some old Anthony Lynn Chargers type stuff there, but
they can't. It's just something about that team. That team is
just can't get it together.
Kicking woes, right? Bad game script at the end of the game.
Just something in the water. Even though they changed cities, it's still there.
It's just there.
But they turned over KC so much.
-4 in the turnover differential.
Yep, but Kansas City still dominated that went up and down the field at will, and I just don't trust that.
Last week they dominated Washington, and it was still closer than it should have been because they had 2 turnovers in the red zone. It was
fluky.
They're fluky. That's the thing. They're tip balls, and it's that's not. You have to look at the process leading up to it, good or bad, and that's why even with the Bills defensive stuff, that's why I'm it was a bad matchup because it's like their process is so good every play. Like it's like they're very smart and they're sound team. Like it's like that's why it's like, you know, it happens. Sometimes you just face a team going nuclear on you. It just happens. But it's
bad things and bad bounces. And I think that's even why, you know, that Micah Hyde pick six against Kansas City. I love that play even more. Not because of the pick six. That was just because Tyreek Hill, you know, botched it into the air and Hyde was lucky. Even if Hill catches that, Micah Hyde's going to, in theory, stick him right there, and it's fourth down, and you're done. The scheme was there.
Process.
The play. Correct. And that process is sustainable, and that's what you build on week after week. You can't think, well, I mean, we're always going to get tip balls, and we're going to pick them and take them to the house. Like, we're going to know, like, how that sustainable process piece is what wins you games long term.
That's like playing craps and betting on Yo 11 and going like, oh, well, I just hit it there. It's going to hit every time. I'm going to bet the hard ways every time. We're good. Like it's good bets. That's what draft picks are. That's what all these are. It's like, yeah, it doesn't happen all the time, but they're good bets. And it's like in the long run, if you get enough chances, if I don't get fired or if I don't get cut in the long run, like that's what it should play out the right way. But sometimes I know, but that's the thing with football, man. Sometimes it's just like, it's got to break the other way. Right. just look at the Cardinals right now. They're 6-0. And I'm just like, every week I'm going like, it's not sustainable, but
exactly. This will be the week that it happens. And then you're just like, son of a bitch, they did it again.
They are good. The Cardinals are good, but it's just very high variance. They just, and I know we're an AFC focus right now, but it's like they just dodged a lot of bullets so far. But it's like they are a good, fun team.
But you keep thinking that they'll regress towards that mean. Like even with Lamar in his MVP season, the next year, that touchdown percentage had to just naturally regress. That high level is not that sustainable. And you think that with other teams, and teams like the Cardinals just. Even with their whole, like their Kingsbury and so many guys are out because of COVID and they have to scrap
Rodney Hudson, the center's out.
Like,
give us a beat.
What? No, we're fine. Last two little points, because, you know, I know you were able to stay a little bit longer, which is amazing. Last 2 points. First, second point is a little bit of a follow-up question to something you posted on Twitter that you don't know that I'm going to ask you, but I thought it was awesome. But we'll go with the first one first. You know, you mentioned the Ravens. It's all about Lamar, yada, yada. You know quarterbacks so well. What have you seen from Lamar this year in terms of being a passer? I know he's electric. He's tremendous as a runner, all these things, but there's still so many people. He's so polarizing. Someone thinks he's amazing, and then someone else is like, laugh out loud, pretty good for a running back. But what have you seen from him as a passer this year? Is he still the same Lamar, or has he started to ascend in terms of his throwing ability and just what he can do mechanically with his arm?
He's always been a good thrower of the ball. It was just what they want to run for him. And I think so. It's where the scheme has trimmed some fat on what they want to do. They, as opposed to all these tight formations with the jet motion with the fullback and then throwing like little tight over routes where there wasn't a lot of space, they kind of spread pass now. And we saw it a lot against the Colts. But it's just spreading to pass now, as opposed to before they would spread to run the jet sweep with it, and then run the little GT counter and all that stuff. And now it's like, and now it's run. Oh, let's just run like a little two-man concepts on each side and split field concepts for him. So I think they kind of just, again, it's kind of like a theme of what I've talked about is like narrow in on what they want to do. I still think too, is that he has gotten just more consistent on some of those outside throws. He's taken those gimmies and seeing them and actually anticipating like a little stop route. And the benefit of having even just better receiving help, like a Sammy Watkins, he's talented. He's always hurt, but is he the greatest player? Yeah. Is he the greatest player in the world? No, but he's solid. Like he is. He has a role. He's a useful player when he's healthy.
You know what you're getting. He's got that floor that's established.
Yes. Having a guy like that helped put like Hollywood Brown in better situations. They stopped just asking Hollywood Brown to run deep dig routes, which is like it's a big man receiver route. And they're having like little tiny Hollywood Brown run them. So they just started putting their guys in better spots, and that's helped Lamar. He has a talented arm. I think he's learned to embrace what he is. Like his timing on things is so unusual. Some quarterbacks, like I'm always going to praise Dak. Dak is like the epitome of what you want with your quarterback mechanics and drop back and stuff. But Lamar can get away with what he does because it's his own rhythm. If he does a 3-step drop out of the gun, it's more a 3 hitch, and then throw, which is fine. I wouldn't teach that, but Lamar throws it on time. So it's like, I think they have like learned what his timing is on throws and on routes. So they've extended routes to maybe be, hey, break at I'm just making up numbers here, but just kind of get the gist of it. Break at 18 yards instead of 16 to maybe give that extra, maybe
to further tailor it to suit his game and allow him to succeed and be set up for success.
And then so maybe if he doesn't, and also creating more space. Football is all about angles and numbers. Like that's what it is. Blocking, defense, and offense and passing game. It's all just about numbers and space and angles. And if you have those routes deeper, then the Lamar's legs get more space to run, and you're just creating a new high-low. And I think that's just what they kind of done. It's so hard with them because it's such a unique offense where I can't just go, I got to look at their pass concepts and go like, oh, they're doing 4 verts more. It's like I watch it. I'm like, well, that's some weird route concept that Greg Roman drew up on someone's back
on a napkin.
Like. Yeah, that's I know. And I'm so negative on it because it works, but it's like it doesn't look like anything else. But they've leaned into what he does well. And Lamar's a freak, like he is. I've repeated it a few times, but my dad, the first time he watched Lamar, they were playing Clemson, I believe. It was Clemson or Florida State. And we're watching it. We were in Baltimore about to play the Ravens 2 nights before. We fly on Fridays. We're watching the game, and he just goes, "That's Randy Moss playing quarterback," and that's always
wild.
Been burned in my brain because it's just like because how he moves and just like he's the best athlete on the field every time he steps on the field. So it's just, but like you said, it's polarizing because it's so unusual.
Yeah, it's so unusual, and credit to Baltimore for literally in the span of like drafting him and then that next offseason revamping their entire offense and going from Flacco to then not just trying to take a square peg in Lamar and putting him in a round hole. To your point, they fully leaned in. And this year, I think they've taken another step because it wasn't just like, well, we're going to keep doing the running thing and the concepts that we've done. Now, I love your points. They were so great. Like what they started to do in the passing attack to start to suit him even further. And if you can increase his efficiency with his arm, oh, that's a dangerous team.
I know. And when you do that spread to pass stuff, it's so easy to see where the blitzes are coming from because everything's just spread out.
Yep.
And the defense kind of has to they can't show their disguises as well. So now doing that as opposed to being condensed, now he just sees it, he throws hot, or he makes the blitzer miss and then he just runs for 20 yards.
You're simplifying the game for the guy who's already the best athlete on the field every single moment he's on the field. Like that's
one and done. Take your 30-yard gain or your 10-yard gain. Okay, cool.
Yeah, pick your poison. Either way, you're going to lose.
Fun.
Awesome. You started to mention this is the last thing I want to wrap up with. Because I mentioned this before to get you out of here, but I want to keep you forever because you're fantastic. You mentioned Dak Prescott. I pulled a tweet that you sent a couple days ago because I thought it was awesome. You said, private QB coaches should be using Dak Prescott film as teach tape for everything. Period. Everything. Period. Again, from mechanics to using eyes to footwork to timing, just an absolute machine on every play. I hate the Dallas Cowboys, but I love Dak in Mississippi State. I respect his story, him as a person. Just it all seems to really jive and click. But he has taken so many leaps in his game throughout his career. I just wanted, even though we have been focused here on the AFC a bit. Just talk about Dak, I guess, for a minute and why, you would use his film as teach tape for everything that he does and what, makes him so great.
Yeah, even that tweet. Yeah, it is everything. It's everything. I think because I think, and that was kind of my own little private shot at private QB coaches too, because it's just, everyone always just wants to go, I just showed this and they show a clip and just like got to laugh at it. Like showing like Josh Allen throw something on the move. And it's like, is every quarterback 6'5", 240 can throw like that and run like that? It's like, okay,
you can't teach that.
You can't teach that. You want to teach guys that it's like, okay, I can emulate this. And Dak is talented. He is physically talented. Don't get me wrong, but just, he has maximized every ounce of his ability to the fullest. And every drop back he has, and I'll go pre-snap in a second, because pre-snap is actually what I like about him the most, but post-snap, it's every drop is perfectly efficient. Like his timing on everything. They run a lot more quick game than you would think. And he's able to, quick game is tough because you have to shortcut a lot of reads. And it's very hard. Is in theory, some of those concepts, all 5 guys are available. And it's like the quarterback and all 5 weapons. We get all 5 eligible outs. They can't defend all 5. Someone has to be wrong. Usually most quarterbacks can get to 2 and maybe get to 3.
Yeah.
Dak can get to all 5. If they run a spacing concept, he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's all in a 3-step drop.
Yeah, in the blink of a
like that. And the joke is it's very much like Drew Brees. Drew Brees can do that, but Dak is just a better athlete and bigger, and so it's like, oh, that's how fun he is. So like so all the dropbacks stuff is great. All the mechanics are great. When he hands off the ball, like he tucks the other hand, just like those little things.
The
And
details.
then the details, and as far as accuracy and all that, but throwing mechanics, he has a very traditional style of throw. Like that's how I've always been. I've learned this from Paul Chris, who I consider like a football savant, and I've taken so much from him. You throw how you throw, and especially once you get to the NFL, it's kind of like I think most improvements comes from footwork and mental side. Okay. And I think with Dak's mechanics being a little bit over the top, that's how I would teach someone day one how to throw if I was teaching a 7-year-old. But it's like, you throw how you throw. Yeah, I've always laughed at everyone's like, oh, the Josh Allen improvements come because he's reworked his entire mechanics. It's like, no, it's because his footwork have gotten great.
Yes, and your other point, his mental progression is tremendous. His ability to read the game.
Yes, he can anticipate now. It's so much easier to anticipate a throw rather than, oh, he's open. Woo, and then the harder you throw, the less accurate you become. It's just physics. It just is. Not a lot of guys can get away with it. That's why Mahomes is a freak. He can anticipate and then throw a laser on top of it. Yeah. And then also put a perfect ball placement on top of that.
Maybe like
while on one foot. And Allen has flashes of that as well. But that improvement all came from, I think, just footwork. And then because he cleaned up, he stopped overstriding as much, but that also ties into his mind. And that's why I think Dak's improvements, all that stuff has come because he's become a football machine mentally. His whole pre-snap operation, he communicates with the O-line. He is extremely sound in his protection knowledge. Like he knows, you can tell he studies everything to the fullest extent that he can. Watching this Patriots game was amazing. I fell in love with Dak. I always liked him when he played the Vikings in 2019, I think it was. And they were playing against Mike Zimmer's defense. And Mike Zimmer's defense on third down throws some wild shit at you. And he sorted out every single one like it was nothing. And it was so cool to watch a quarterback do that, a younger quarterback especially. And so that's why I just love watching Dak. Pre-snap, okay, points out the line, he's communicating, getting everyone set. Post-snap, everything's mechanically sound, perfect drop-back mechanics, great pocket movement, great timing because he listens to his feet. Another Paul Chris adage I've always taken is your feet tell you if you're late. And you can tell a lot. Watch the terrible Tua interception from this past weekend. His feet are trying to tell him that he's late.
Yes, good. Yes, it's like his body's holding him back from that throw.
His feet, he jerks forward because his feet go no. Like you do so many reps, so many practice reps in a clean pocket because you're trying to get what the timing is. You're trying to tell your body to get that muscle memory going, like this feels a little late, or this, oh, I'm early, I can put some touch on it. Like that's what you're there's so much stuff that just happens in between you and the receiver that you have to get timing because you have to anticipate those things. But that's why I love what Dak is. He listens to his feet better than anyone. He can just go boom, boom, boom. It's almost like Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers is his biggest thing. I'm throwing so many things at you guys.
No, it's awesome. This is the type of content that like our fan base and like niche here for Cover One loves. You're speaking. Perfect. You're preaching to the choir here.
Okay, because like Philip Rivers' big thing was if he got knocked off his launch point, he checked it down. And it worked and Seahawks defenses like Dan Quinn, when he came to the Falcons, he said Philip Rivers was always the biggest pain he has to go against because he was willing to check it down all the time. Their defense was built on quarterbacks get bored, and they do. And Philip Rivers never got bored. He was like,
no, I'll just keep taking it.
6-yard gain. Okay, 6-yard, 4-yard gain. Fine. He was fine with it. So Philip Rivers got knocked off if he gets knocked off his launch point, he felt just that split second late, check it down. It was just, he said, I'm not putting the ball in harm's way. That's what Dak does. But then Dak can also feel late and go, okay, I'm late. Now I can break contain. And now it's just the total package of what a quarterback can do within the system. He can create a little bit. Other guys are much better creators outside the pocket, but he creates when he has to. And so that's why I'd say, like, teaching somebody, if I were to teach a quarterback, I would teach it on Dak's timing. I wouldn't teach Russell's. Josh Allen can be on time, but then he also gets into creation mode, and that's what he's best at. I mean, he's incredible. He's Professor Chaos, like that. That's what he is, like, you know. And Mahomes doing it, you can't teach what Mahomes do. It's like teaching like somebody to shoot like Steph Curry, like you but Dak is more like I'm trying to think like I won't say Kobe because Kobe was a great athlete, but Kobe did everything
But
mechanically
he was
sound.
I was gonna say his defensive footwork, his shooting form, like everything
Maxed
was
out.
on point. Yeah,
Maxed out. Maxed out. He was technically
technique.
he was athletic as all get out, but it was like he maxed all those abilities out. And that's kind of what Dak is at that level. And I'm glad he's starting to get some of the praise, not only on the side because I went all in on him this offseason, but also because just like I'm glad people are going like, wow, he's so cerebral. And it's like, yes, exactly. He's not this power running quarterback that we remember from Mississippi State. He is evolved into this Dakota Breeze. I mean, that is what he is.
Nice.
I stole it from someone of my followers. I replied. I always forget their name, but yeah, I'm going to steal that forever because that's what he is. And I'm glad I got to gush about him because I love talking about Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I could tell. Yeah, I saw that tweet right away and kind of pegged it because I just thought it was so like insightful because I don't think a lot of people are out there being like, oh, teach what Dak Prescott does. I think so many people go to I don't want to say, go to like the sexier QBs, like, oh, teach like what Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or
and you
Josh
can't
Allen.
teach what Aaron Rodgers does.
No,
like
there's so
he's
many
all
things.
off foot, off platform. Yeah, it's Brady and Dakota and Dak. Like those are kind of the two. But then Brady is on a whole nother level because he's played like so many games that it's like, I can't teach a quarterback like that.
No, there's just certain things you can't. It's like at a certain point, it's like, well, you should run like Barry Sanders. And it's like, what? Or you should get big like Bo Jackson. Like what? That's not a thing.
We went to Pitt. So when I was coaching or I finished playing, I was Russell's backup at Wisconsin in 2011. So I followed Paul Chris to Pitt when he was a head coach. I was a GA and we're trying to teach, the quarterbacks there, and we're using the tape from the previous year. And then we realized we got to stop showing this tape because Russ is Russ. And so this isn't the best teach tape. Like, oh yeah, just go on the move and throw it 40 yards on a laser. Yeah, just do that. Yeah, just create. Oh yeah. It was like there's a couple ones that were on time, but like even Coach Chris, he would teach us. He'd be like, all right, Nate, this is 3 and a hitch, and then you go 1 to 2 to 3. All right, Russ, this is 3, 2 bounces, then go 1 to 2 to scramble. He would even talk about 3. He just go 1 to 2 to be Russ.
Yeah.
Also why he's a great coach, by the way. But it's but that's
lean into your players. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He knows what they were. He was like, all right, you're a big stiff and you're awesome. You're Russell Wilson. Awesome. Yeah. But that's what good coaching is. But yeah, that's kind of what you watch those guys. It's like you have to, yes, they're all going to be freak athletes. They're NFL guys, but when you're trying to teach somebody, you want to teach the guys that's like that you can actually emulate. And that's what just Dak does. It's the best.
Beautiful. I appreciate you even taking longer. We planned for 30. Say you go longer. I think we went longer than even a little bit. So I apologize for keeping you. This was, I had such a blast talking to you, Nate. Thank you so much for coming on. You were getting a ton of, I just got zoned into our conversation, but there were tons of comments coming through about how great you are and what an awesome guest and this and that. Like we've had a bunch on the show here and on Cover One as a whole, and it's going to be hard to beat everything you've done. You were so phenomenal, man. I had a blast. I feel like everybody does already know you, but tell the good people where they can find you, what you do, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on. Maybe I'll come on after the next AEW pay-per-view. We can talk about that. We'll do
that would be sick.
We'll do a review or something. Yeah, I know. I wish I just got a Kenny Omega shirt. I would have worn that if I knew you were going.
I wore my Bullet Club shirt from New Japan. I saw that. But I almost wore the Kenny Omega Bullet Club version with the cleaner on. I almost did that instead.
I know. I love that gimmick. I got the Kenny Omega, like it's got the Japanese font on it. It's like pinkish salmon color.
Yes.
Yeah,
same. I liked it too.
Okay, yeah, I know. I like that one. Okay, but anyways, you can find all my football, wrestling, soccer stuff on Twitter primarily, Nate_Tice, Nate_Tice. I can say my name. Primarily also find me on the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays. I'm on the Sunday night, Monday morning episodes. We stream live after the Sunday night game. Also find me on the Friday morning episodes. I'm doing college football reports for Bleacher Report. Our first big board will be coming out soon, I think this week or next week. Nice. And then also, lastly, you can find my writings, my logger form stuff. If I don't feel like doing it on Twitter and I actually want to try and explain things more, you can find my Substack. It's called The Silent Count. But yeah, that's where I'm all over the place.
Yeah, and everything is genuinely awesome. Everybody, Bills Mafia, even if you're not Bills Mafia, we get a lot of watchers of football in general here. Follow Nate. His content is top notch. It honestly doesn't really get better in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, thank you so much, man. This was awesome. I had an absolute blast. You were tremendous. Thank you so much.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me on. I'll talk to you soon.
Later, Nate. Nate was tremendous, everyone. I don't think I can say any more than I need to. That was amazing. We're not done with this episode. Almost more amazing than Nate is. So I mentioned it in the tweets and in the intro to this episode. I was bringing on Sterling, who you guys all know, The Hoof. Awesome show. Cover one. Tremendous. AKA Jeffrey P. Danger. We initially planned to have him on right at 6:30. I thought Nate was only going to be able to do the 30 minutes. He was able to stay a little longer. I was communicating with Sturls. Sturls has been in the green room here, rocking, just chilling, vibing out to me running my mouth with Nate. He's been chilling this whole time. Now I'm going to bring him on. So I just want to do that whole lead because, Nate was amazing. But the fact that Sturtles, man, that you've just been chilling, waiting, ready to like pounce and jump at it. Like, dude, I appreciate you so much. One, for even being able to join me tonight because you're awesome and you deserve it. But two, thank you so much for letting me kind of ride out that wave with Tice just now.
Hey, man, I was entertained back here watching you guys, geek out about wrestling. Nate is just a wealth of knowledge, man. He's such a good follow, smart guy. Those are the kind of guys we want here at Cover One. So,
hell yeah.
And
you're one of those kind of smart guys, which is why I wanted to bring you on tonight. I also like tonight you're doing the glasses look because it makes you look even smarter, and it makes
I have to pretend to look like something when I'm on with you guys. So I have to
fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
Everyone's gonna be like, "Yo, look how smart he is." You see his glasses? He's so smart. So we go from one. Go ahead.
I play a smart guy in real life, but when I'm outside of work, I'm just a dude.
Just a dude. That's just a dude with a baller truck. With an awesome baller truck. So we go from one quality guest to another quality guest. And before we jump into it, I mentioned quality. I like to talk about quality. And I would be remiss if I did not always mention our sponsor here on Disguise Coverage. You see it in the bottom. I'm always terrible. I can never tell where the sides are. You see it in the bottom. I'm going to stop pointing. You see it in the bottom right of your screen, the One Pie Pizza logo. We're sponsored by One Pie Pizza here. I've shown different graphics at times of delicious pizzas that I personally have had. Those aren't like stock photos from somewhere. I get like a pizza every week from them and I take a picture of it and share it. But as I've done for this entire month of October, I've been throwing up this graphic of what One Pie Pizza has been doing, which I think is just awesome. A portion of every pizza sold this month raises money to donate to Roswell Park Cancer Institute for the entire month of October. I've said it. I don't know how many times more I can continue to say it. They make amazing pizza. They're amazing people, delicious sweet sauce, homemade blue cheese. Just they believe in doing one thing and doing that one thing right and perfect, and that's making pizza. Go out, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Tell them Disguise Coverage and Cover One sent you, and also do some good for the world and humanity. There's so much nastiness and meanness in this world, and it's nice to have some people who are genuinely good people doing some good for the rest of the world. So go out, do your taste buds a favor and get some One Pie Pizza, and then do the people of the world and Buffalo as well some good by going out and getting some One Pie Pizza and contributing to helping to knock out cancer. That's something that they're tremendously proud of. We're proud of at Cover One, and I'm proud of here to have a sponsor like that does something like that. So go out and get yourself some One Pie Pizza. And now we'll get into the meat of the episode. State of the Buffalo Bills at the bye week. Sturls, we talked about it a little bit earlier this episode with Nate and I, the potential sky falling type of thing for some fans. Before we get into the nitty gritty of this episode, what are your thoughts coming into this bye week? We literally like the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. Awesome victory against Kansas City. Everybody's feeling great. Everybody's feeling invincible. And then we just have not only a loss, but a loss where we did not play well on defense especially, but we're a bit inefficient on offense. And then just an absolute gut punch to lose the game on that fourth down. How are you feeling about the Bills holistically right now as a team coming into this bye week at 4-2?
Well, for one, I wasn't even mad that we lost the game, to be honest.
Okay.
It was one of those games where you think about it. You have the best running back in the league, and he just had one of those days. I mean, there was nothing that you could have done differently from a defensive standpoint. I mean, the Bills are who they are. This is not a overly physical defense, right? They are very much a bend don't break style of defense. So when you have a guy like that, and knowing the history of the Bills defense under Sean McDermott, they're not a great tackling team. So you have that coupled with some questionable officiating calls, and Derrick Henry being who he is. I mean, there's not many running backs that's going to do what Derrick Henry did to this Bills defense. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not even mad. I wasn't even mad that they lost. I was more mad that they lost to Pittsburgh than they lost.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, you know what? Hey, it was one of those games where you ever like playing basketball, right? Like those games where there's just somebody who's just on. Like this team, you know, you're better than them, but they're just having the best day of their life.
Every shot is just like water, and you're like,
every shot, it's just like, okay, all right, you're in the zone. I get it. Like, and I was talking, you know, last night on the Hoof, I was saying like that's the best game they're going to play for the rest of the year. Tennessee Titans, that's going to be their best game.
Everything worked out for them and fell the way they needed it to as well. Yeah.
You mean to tell me that a team coming in the game giving up 20 sacks that they didn't give up any? The Bills couldn't even touch Ryan Tannehill. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I was okay with it, but overall, you know, temperature for this team, I'm still high on them. They're going to be games where they're going to lose. I mean, we lost to the Arizona Cardinals last year, and we thought that we were going to smoke the Cardinals. We were going to beat the Cardinals, right? So this is a long season, and it's so week to week, and we get so wrapped up in what happens this week and what happens next week, and so forth. So this is still a great team. This team should be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. I don't change my stance on that. Tennessee just had a better game. They executed.
It was, man, they had a really good game plan. Nate broke it down so well earlier and just what they were able to do and what they want to do when they were able to work it. And also, I think, you know, like their studs made stud plays. You know, Harold Landry was effective up front. Jeffrey Simmons wins the game for them on that 4th down stop. You know, their guys came up and made big plays late, which is something that I think that's what bothered me the most about the loss. Like, just that I kept not waiting, but I guess waiting for someone to make a play. Like I expected, okay, here's where we get a sack, or here's where we get a turnover, or just some kind of, especially defensively, I kept waiting for someone to make that play, and we didn't get it. But then I was all right. We were still working the ball on offense, and then we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with Josh Allen taking that sack when we were up 31-27. Right. And then even when Tennessee scored, I was like, they can't really stop us. They're down to like their 5th string corners. We can't make a play defensively. We'll make a play offensively. And instead, Jeffrey Simmons showed up and made a play. And damn, I'm trying to think. I was definitely super upset after the Pittsburgh game, mainly because of the style of performance. The lack of adjustment in the Pittsburgh game drove me nuts. The fact that we just continued to be like, nope, it's fine. We're just going to keep spreading it out and doing 5-man protections. We'll be fine. And the fact that Pittsburgh was like, okay, we're just going to keep wrecking your offensive line. And the fact that we didn't do anything to counter that hurt me, and I was upset. This Titans one, and you know, even I picked the Bills to lose to Tennessee coming into this year. But then things started to change. You know, once you actually put the pads on and games start happening, I was hurt. I said it on the post game. I definitely did not want to do the post game. I was just like, this sucks. Like, I was gut punched. That loss. My wife had fallen asleep on the couch, and she literally woke up as the 4th down play was happening. She was like, oh, like, what's going on? I'm like, it's 4th down. And then Josh Allen gets stopped, and she's just in like a sleepy, groggy mess, and she's like, oh, that play call sucked. Like, what was that? And I was just like, shut up. Like, I don't know. And I like shut off the TV. I was heated. I was upset. I'm glad you were calm and zen. I was not. I was not. Like, I was revved. I did not feel good at all. I hate Tennessee, dude. Like, the music. I hate the Music City Miracle. I hate that they did 2 callbacks to it in this stupid game. I hate that they didn't call holding on Derrick Henry's first touchdown run. I hate that they called it on Manny Sands, and I hate that they also called it on Andre Smith. I hate everything about this game.
Yeah, I mean, that should tell you that the game was rigged. It's almost as rigged as the NBA draft lottery. I
do not believe how they pull those pong balls out. I 1,000% think it's rigged. Same thing with the
it's
NHL
totally
lottery.
Rigged.
It's rigged.
It's totally rigged. So Monday, once I found out that Monday's game was rigged and they're paying refs under the table, I was okay with it. So anytime the Bills go to Nissan Field or whatever you want to call it, it's rigged. Like they're not going to win. I've come to learn that. So man, I wasn't mad, you know, and even the Andre Smith hold, I'm like, bro, like, if we're going to call holding, can we be at least consistent with it? Like,
yeah, that's my thing.
That was the thing. And so, you know, you saw the disgust on Isaiah McKenzie's face. Like you just saw him like, man.
I felt for him. He was just like, oh no. And I was
man.
Like,
it was rough. It was rough watching that, man. And it was like one of those games where you're just desensitized. You know, I'm just watching like, I'm just I'm just observing. I have no vested interest in this. I want to see what happens, but I just don't think that, watching the game, I just don't think that the Bills had a chance to win the game. They just didn't, just based on how everything played out. Like I said, Derrick Henry was having a really good game. And then to be able to exploit the Bills linebackers who've been excellent in coverage all year long, right? And they're so worried about stopping the run, and to be able to just dink a dunk them over the middle, man, it just like, here we go. It hurts. Steph, like he was saying, Steph Curry come down and hit another three. Like, what are you gonna do? There's nothing you can do. Just let him do his thing, man. Or it's the dog that humps your leg. Just let him finish. Let him finish, man.
Eventually, just let him.
Just let him finish. That was the game on Monday night.
Their stars hit. Their studs hit. They made plays, but again, at the end of the day, like I think, it's not the end of the world. Like I'm more upset that it hurts potential playoff structuring. Like I wanted us to beat Tennessee just to have the win in general, but that way I for Tennessee harder this week to beat Kansas City. Now it's almost like we basically want Kansas City to beat Tennessee because Tennessee has the tiebreaker against us, all those little things, but it's week 6. The sky is not falling. This is still a very good Buffalo Bills team. It sucks that we lost to a team that I think as a fan base, a heavy majority of us don't like. It's also unfortunate that we lost in a fashion that we also don't like a defense that everybody was really high on just gets gouged. The offense, kind of blows it at the end and fails in a monumental fashion. So I think all those things, combine to make people feel super negative. But, the perspective is key. I love your perspective on it. I love the perspective Nate had. This guy is not falling. Nate, as he said earlier, they're still his favorite to come out of the AFC. He still thinks they're the in the AFC because of how complete they are. And that's where we're going to start to move this discussion that we want to get into in this back half of the episode. So when I had this idea for the episode, and Sterling, you know this because I texted you. I wanted to go into this, the state of the Buffalo Bills at the bye week in terms of looking at position groupings, where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, what players have done great and exceeded expectations, which ones haven't. And then kind of, again, circling back at the end to look at which AFC teams we would rather face in the playoffs versus not face in the playoffs. And so we're going to start on a positive note to start this whole discussion.
On a positive note, yes, go. I have a question for you too, my friend.
Okay, ask me. Shoot.
Do you want to do it now or later?
Whatever. I don't know. Should we wait?
Let's wait. Let's wait to the end. Wait to the end.
But that grin makes me want to know now.
Because you're my dog. Like, I love being here with you, but no, you should wait because I don't want to ruin your timeline of what we got going on here. But I have a really good question for you, and it's a question that I think if you talk to Greg about it, I think he will definitely have some ideas on it as well.
Okay, we'll wait till the end.
Let's wait till the end.
Wait till the end. Build the anticipation. I'm not going to be able to think about anything for the rest of this episode other than that. You're going to be talking, and I'm just going to be like, what is the question? What is the question? What is the question? But we'll start on that. Damn, I really want to know. But we'll start on the positive note. Position grouping. At this point, heading into the bye week, Buffalo Bills. Sturles, will start with you because you are the guest. Which position group for the Buffalo Bills is the strongest on this team, in your opinion?
I'm going to say the defensive back room.
Good pick.
Just what they've been able to do. I mean, this is a team that they're ranked number 1 in the league in pass yards allowed. You have, the number 2 interception leader. I know we all talk about Trayvon Diggs, with 7 interceptions, but Michael Hyde has 3 picks. Jordan Poyer comes in at 6 with 2 picks. I mean, these guys, what they're able to do, and it's so cool to see them like interchange. There is no longer in this Bills defense, there's no longer free safety, strong safety. It's just safety.
Great point.
And the fact that they are so willing, which you don't see this with a lot of teams, they're so willing to play in the box and commit to the run. Mm-hmm. And you also see them being able to make plays on the ball in the pass game. So, I mean, it was the magnum opus watching them against Tennessee. And it was beautiful, man. And so Trey White, we don't even talk about him this year, but he's having a really good season. I mean, he's not showing up in terms of, production, in terms of, what he's able to do in terms of turnovers, but he's just sound. He's just one of those guys like you and Tice was talking about. He's just sound fundamentally, man. And Levi Wallace, we don't see teams going after him as much. Now, week one, with Pittsburgh and Deontay Johnson, they kind of had his number, right? But outside of that, man, I mean, the DBs as a whole, they've been holding it down. And so that's probably the strongest position group on the team. And I lump them as a whole, right? So I'm including safety, defensive back, and, Taryn Johnson in there as well. But yeah, I would have to, it's not even a question. It's defensive backs for me.
If you had to break it down further, which position grouping is stronger, the safeties or the corners?
Safeties.
Oh, wow. Not even a hesitation.
Not even a hesitation. I think with Poyer, I think Micah Hyde and Poyer, I think Micah Hyde's having his best season as a pro. And he can even, and we'll see how it plays out, but I think he could even have a say in all pro discussions when the season's done. I mean, he's really doing that good of a job. And I think, if you were to ask players around the league what he's doing on the field, stuff that as fans or people, we don't get to see, but just how he's so sound and getting everybody in position pre-snap and what they're supposed to be doing. And
that's so good mentally.
He's so good mentally, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So I think he's having one of those all-pro seasons, man. So I would have to say it's the safety position. Levi Wallace, if you want to talk about Levi Wallace, I mean, I think he's still he's not where, as fans we want him to be. Well, he is what he is at this point, right?
We know.
He's reached his ceiling, and that's as good as he's gonna get. But it's the safeties by far.
Okay. I like that. I came down to two position groupings, one defensively, one offensively. The one defensively was the defensive back. So just for argument's sake, I'll pick the other. But to echo your point just briefly, the secondary is such a key piece on this team. We saw it against Kansas City. They're all jokes aside and no pun intended, their ability to disguise coverage against Kansas City to show. I thought I wouldn't laugh when I said it, but then you laughed and it made me laugh. Their ability to come up and, okay, it's cover three. And Mahomes, who gets talked about so much for his physical ability, and rightfully so, his arm and what he can do with his creativity and all that kind of stuff, the sexy stuff, but he's so good mentally. He's so good at identifying things pre-snap. The Bills confused him a ton, showing cover three and then running cover one. The robber execution from Hyde and Poyer coming into the middle of the field. Hyde gets that pick six, but even if he doesn't pick it off, he plants Tyreek Hill right there short of the marker. Poyer had a pass break up to stop the Chiefs on fourth down earlier in the game on a cover one robber. And then they would show cover one and they drop into cover three. And this is the team that traditionally doesn't run a lot of man under Sean McDermott, but they executed in those multiple scheme looks. They showed that versatility against Kansas City. And then they did it for the beginning of the game, at least against Tennessee, continuing to show those different looks and execute differently pre versus post snap. And the secondary allows you to do so much. And now looking at it holistically, that point, Hyde and Poyer, one of, if not the best safety tandem in the league. Tre'Davious White at worst is like a top 5 corner. On a bad day, he's like a top 5 corner. Wallace isn't someone you're going to write home about, but he's more than solid. He's an above average corner. He's not sexy, but he gets the job done. And then Taryn Johnson is emerging as at worst, like a top 10 nickel corner, maybe even potentially top 5. And if we're talking about just coming forward, he might be the best tackling nickel corner in the league. He's physical. He's gotten better. I know his man coverage ability is still going to be talked about, and rightfully so, but in zone, he's so sound mentally and physically. He does a great job communicating. So yeah, that secondary is the strongest group on this team without a doubt. But, I'm probably biased because of this guy's coverage name of the show. But just for argument's sake, flip it. I'll go wide receivers. That grouping, I want the Bills to run the ball to keep teams honest. When I say run the ball, I don't mean they have to have like a 70-30 split or, 50-50. I'd like it to be somewhere around like 65-35, maybe 60-40 at the most. I just want the running game to be there in order to keep defenses honest and know that we can do it if things aren't working in the pass, or ideally against a team like Pittsburgh when all of a sudden guys are just squaring off and teeing off in the pass rush. And you're like, okay, let's run it a little bit just to change of pace, do something. But the strength of this team offensively lies with Josh Allen and the weaponry. Game after game, we continue to see, even in the loss, Beasley, Diggs, Manny. Gabriel Davis, I think, is still a strong young prospect, and he's not even like really seeing the field. And if I'm also going to throw Dawson Knox in there because I'll just throw the outside periphery weapons there. Dawson Knox has emerged and starting to show that productivity and capitalizing on that athleticism combined with technique that we had hoped to see. I like Greg throwing in there the 62-38 optimal ratio for run pass, even though he insulted the hell out of us earlier in the comments by saying, "Oh, Tice is already gone." Never.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Yeah, what a jerk! I
even threw him a bone. I even threw him a bone at the end of the show, so he gonna do us like that, man.
I thought you saw it when I saw it because I saw you look to the side and I saw you smirk and I was like, he saw it. Well played. But yeah, I really don't think man or zone, I don't think this receiver group, and I'll throw Knox in there too, I don't think they can be covered, especially, the top three, Diggs, Beasley, and Manny Sands. They know how to leverage coverage in zone. I don't think they can be covered in man. Emmanuel Sanders, prior to Derrick Henry being the fastest, track ball speed from a ball carrier this year against the Bills, I think Manny was like top 5 in terms of fastest track speed this year, which is ridiculous for a 34-year-old, like non-prime wide receiver. He's getting vertical. That wide receiver group is so strong. And we see it week to week. That's why, 1 week it's a Diggs week. The next it's a Manny Sands week. The next it's a Cole Beasley week. And man, they can all click at the same time like they did against Tennessee. It's a shame we didn't win that game. But yeah, that's my secondary pick behind the DBs would be the wide receivers. Now we're going to flip it and move to a less than ideal thing to talk about. Mr. Earls, I'm going to lead with you again because, again, you are the guest. I don't like that you're laughing already. I feel like you know something I don't.
No, I
don't. Which position group on this team, in your opinion, is the weakest or the one that worries you the most?
It's guard. It is guard.
Okay.
And specifically left guard. And specifically John Feliciano.
Okay.
I'm just not a fan. I wasn't a fan of bringing him back this year. You constantly see him, when in terms of being able to hold at the point of contact with power rushers, he struggles so much, man. And it's like, I understand that he lost weight coming into this season, but
which was cool to see. That was
right.
Nice.
And he's trying to better himself, and I appreciate that. But what's so funny to me is that you see a guy like Spencer Brown come in as a rookie. And Spencer Brown is everything that, as Bills fans, that we want Feliciano to have been in terms of you see the way he talks shit on the field. You see it match up. It matches up with his play on the field, right? And I don't see that from Feliciano. We talk about he's the enforcer. And it's like, bro, when you're out there getting it handed to you, I'm sorry, man. I know you're not going to win every rep, but man, can you win half the reps?
He's a little more bark than bite.
Right. And it's like, bro, it's like, come on, man. So I just think that, and it's so funny is because Mitch Morse, we were kind of down on him last year, but he's still a really good center. He's a really good center. And I don't think he's getting enough credit. And so Deion Dox is a guy that's coming back from COVID. And I had COVID, and a lot of people have COVID. And you don't understand how hard it is to when you're playing at that such high level, trying to get back into the swing of things from a physical standpoint. That's hard. So we're going to see Deion Dawkins improve throughout the season. But so you have, Feliciano here, and I just don't think he's getting the job done. He's slow. He's not a great athlete, and I think he loses more than he wins in terms of, physicality at the point of attack. He can't get to the second level consistently, and I think that's an issue in the run game.
That's fair. You went very specific with that, and I can't fault you for it. I had, so for the strongest position grouping, like I mentioned, the DBs and the wide receivers, I had, two groupings that I was torn between. This one was a no-brainer for me. I didn't go as, narrow in scope as you did, but I'm going with the offensive line as a whole, which is unfortunate because, to your point, I think Mitch Morse has had a good season. He didn't have a good game against Tennessee, but he's had a good game. And I think I hopefully think people are starting to come around and realize how good he is and how athletic he is. And now that the scheme, based on the health of the offensive line as a whole and how they played so far, now he's able to do things because he's not having to be held back as much by the interior guard play this year, even though it's not great, but it's better than it was last year in terms of what they have done. But I look at this offensive line, and just to throw out some metrics, which aren't terrible, but they're 23rd in pass blocking efficiency. But they're higher in some areas. They're 9th in pass block win rate. They're 12th in run block win rate. But then you go to some other things. Josh Allen, he's 3rd in the entire NFL in number of dropbacks when under pressure with 79. Only Carson Wentz with 80 and Jared Goff with 85 have more dropbacks when under pressure than Josh Allen. And now some people might say like, well, maybe that's on Allen. Maybe he holds the ball. I can understand that, but that's also not really on it. Only 10.1% of those pressures are due to Josh Allen, are credited to Josh Allen. And if we look at the offensive line as a whole, 21.5% of the pressures coming from left guard, 27.8% coming from right guard, 24% coming from right tackle. And then to your point with Dawkins and Morse, only 13.9% coming from left tackle and 12.7% coming from the center position. I like Spencer Brown a lot, but I don't think he's ahead of schedule for sure, and he's played well, but he still shows plays at times and drives at times where it's like, see, that's why he shouldn't be in here right now. He's still green. But the fact that the Bills coaching staff feels that he is one of the best 5 guys to put out there, I don't want to take anything away from Spencer Brown. I think that says more about the rest of the offensive line grouping as a whole, that they had to take a guy who played 8-man football in high school and was a tight end, who played at the University of Northern Iowa and doesn't have a ton of reps under his belt, who didn't play last year due to COVID. Not that that means you need a ton of reps and snaps. We've seen Gregory Rousseau play tremendous this year at times. So, that doesn't mean you can't be great. But we all think or thought, and not that we can't be wrong, but the plan for Spencer Brown really was love the athleticism. Let's draft him. Let's let him marinate. Let's let him cook. Next year, maybe the year after, slot him in. The fact that they've had to, and granted, to his credit, he is ahead of schedule. The fact that they had to push him in and then take Darrell Williams and put him at right guard speaks to, I think, the quality of the offensive line as a whole, that they really couldn't get it together. And Williams, he hasn't been bad at guard. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been great. He definitely hasn't been as good at guard as he was at right tackle for those stretches last year. And then to your point, John Feliciano on the other side, I didn't mind him coming back. Even at the money, I thought, okay, I was hoping he would be a depth guy. He has center guard versatility. Maybe we can use him in a pinch and a stretch. I really hoped the Bills would draft a guard in one of the first 3 rounds. I think we all did on cover when we mentioned it so much. They did not. I still think the interior, like if I had to narrow it down to your point, the interior of the line still scares me. Not Morse as much, but Morse to a degree, because I think he has to overextend himself at times to cover up for the deficiencies in guard play. And that stresses him, which then stresses the entire offensive line. That's really the only hang up I have with this grouping, or with this team as a whole, really. I just don't know what we're going to get week to week with the offensive line. And I know a lot of the pressure stats and things are kind of going to come from that Pittsburgh game when Pittsburgh tore us up. But I don't know what happens if we play Pittsburgh again in the playoffs, or what happens if we get faced up with Cleveland and they've got elite guys up front, and even Baltimore with Calais Campbell and Owe looks sick and Justin Houston is still there. They've got guys who can rush the passer. Like, I get nervous at times with groups or teams that have elite guys up front because I don't know what we're going to get out of the Bills offensive line. I don't think they're terrible. I don't think they're a top 10 unit. I don't think they're a bottom 10 or bottom 5 unit, but they play inconsistently enough to the point where I'm like, on this one drive, they might be a vulnerability or a liability. They might not be that every drive, and they might not be that every game, but there's just so much inconsistency at that play or at that position from left to right tackle. Even Deion Dawkins, who is a solid left tackle, he's also coming back from COVID. So to your point, I think that has to be in the conversation. But he's had several snaps this year where you're just like, oh God, like what are you doing? What's going on? Mitch Morse, who I think has been our best offensive lineman, got trucked hard a lot against Tennessee. The interception that Josh Allen had on the deflection on his arm from Danico Autry happened because Spencer Brown just got completely worked. Spencer Brown looked like an inexperienced right tackle on that play, but he's in there because the rest of the offensive line combinations weren't working and they had to push him in ahead of schedule. To the question here from Mustafa, what happened to Ford? I don't know what happened to Cody Ford. Like, I liked
He's just not good.
I liked him in the preseason, and I thought, like, okay, like maybe starting to pan out. I really thought he had a chance to be the fourth best offensive lineman on this team, which I was okay with. If John Feliciano was going to be our worst offensive lineman, I wasn't distraught. I thought that could be okay, but it's kind of fluctuated at different times. The offensive line, like to your point, guard is definitely there, and specifically Feliciano. The line as a whole just scares me at times because I also have it in the back of my mind, like, I don't know what happens if Deion Dawkins gets completely blown up on this play. Granted, that could happen to anyone, but he's shown multiple times where it's just like, oh, he got blown up. Uh-oh, Josh is going to get smoked.
You mean 4th and 1?
I don't know if I want to. I don't know what to do with that and give it more of like that's on Dawkins or just give full credit to Jeffrey Simmons for making a play. But either way, I mean,
that's on Dawkins too,
watch.
man. Yeah. I think it's on Dawkins too. And you see, we saw, Jeffrey Simmons shade inside, right? But it's 4th and 1. I mean, there is no room for error, and it's not like it was a full yard.
It was definitely like half yard.
It was half a yard, and you have to win that rep. You have to from left tackle to guard. You have to win that rep, and there's no excuse. Jeffrey Simmons made a great play. I mean, he made a better play. But go to your point. I look at Spencer Brown like we view Josh Allen early in his career, right? Spencer Brown, I'm not saying Spencer Brown's going to be Josh Allen, but Spencer Brown, what he's able to do with just pure athleticism, that's what he's working with right now. He doesn't have the game rep experience and so forth, but he's able, I'll give him a pass because he's able to at least hold his own. You see some reps where you're like, man, he won that rep. Like, he did a hell of a job. And then you see some reps like on Monday night where it's like, yeah, you're still a rookie. You still got a long ways to go. That's why I don't have much grace for a guy like John Feliciano when you have a left tackle who's pretty good, and you have a center that's really good. Why are you still struggling?
Yeah, you're almost like shielded by two really strong guys. Like all you have to do is just not be the weak link.
Right. And then you have Darrell Williams, who's his best position is right tackle, and they're kicking him in the guard. So I give you a pass on the right side of the line. Feliciano, you have no excuse. There's no excuse. Sorry. There's no excuse.
Yeah, it's rough, and it just makes I feel bad even talking like negatively about Spencer Brown because to your point, like I love the attitude and the mentality he plays with. I love how he finishes off runs where he just gets to the pile and just chucks the hell out of somebody just to like add a little extra edge and nastiness. I love his athleticism. And I do give him like a pass to a degree again because he is so green and he is so raw, and you're gonna have those growing pains. But that's also what scares me. Like, I don't know if we're on a third and need it. Like, we need this first down. What if he has one of those snaps where it's like, he looked like a rookie on that play, and Josh Allen he has no time and he's done. Like, if we happen to play Pittsburgh, or again, I'll just throw the same examples before, Pittsburgh, studs everywhere. But even Cleveland, is Cleveland just going to be like, all right, cool, Miles on the rookie every single snap? And I think Spencer Brown could hold his own. But does he hold his own enough that he can lock down one of, if not the best pass rushers in the NFL? And that, like, I know Dawkins can do enough to impede him and cause some inefficiency, but I get worried as a whole with Spencer Brown and even Dawkins to a degree. And that's not when we have such an exciting offense and so much weaponry and so much talent. But if we can't protect the guy who's got to get the ball to all the talent, then we're dead in the water.
Didn't we say that about Josh Allen, though, his first year? Like, we had the same, I mean, a different position, but same concerns, right? I just think Spencer Brown's on that trajectory. I really do think that from what we've seen so far, I think he has an ability to be the right tackle for the Bills for a very long time.
I agree. I'm very encouraged for what he right now in 2021. He gives me some uneasiness, but going forward, you have to be very, very encouraged.
So I'd rather throw him in the fire now and just chalk this up as a learning year.
That's fair.
Because I know the investment in the long term is going to be way better, right? If I had to pick, would I rather have Spencer Brown or John Feliciano to win a rep against a top, let's say Chris Jones at, back at defensive tackle against Feliciano at guard, then Myles Garrett on Spencer Brown. Who are you taking?
I think I'd rather take Garrett versus Brown.
Exactly. That's my point.
Like, that's wild.
That's
like,
my point.
That should not be the case.
That's my point, right? And I didn't even say Aaron Donald. I tried to make it palatable.
Right,
for,
yeah.
You know
to make it okay.
But that's my point. So it's like, that's how, and I'm not saying Feliciano's not a bad person. He is what he is. But I just think the Bills, they're struggling at guard. And I think, from an offensive line that needs so much continuity to be successful, the best offensive lines have that continuity, right? And we struggle. It puts a lot of pressure on Mitch Morse to have to hold he has to play even that much better, right? And that's a lot of pressure to put on Mitch Morse. And so, I mean, he's in the middle, and you got two guys that are liabilities. That's rough. It's rough, man. It's rough. It's tough.
I feel for him. I don't think it allows him to they stop him from shining.
Yeah.
They don't allow him to get his, and it's unfortunate because he is so good and he can do so much. And when the offensive line clicks, some of the fold blocks that we've seen between he and Darrell Williams, they're beautiful. They're art. Like, when things go good, they go good. And I think what could be a silver lining for this offensive line is, you would think, just in theory, by the end of the year, Spencer Brown should be a much better right tackle than he is right now.
Absolutely.
And also, Darrell Williams should be much more comfortable at right guard than he is right now. And so I think this offensive line could end up by the end of the year being, I don't want to say significantly better, but if you think they're if they're a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, I think by the end of the year, they could end up being like a 7.5, just by Spencer Brown continuing to progress on that trajectory and Darrell Williams starting to get more comfortable. And then if that happens, Morse's job becomes easier at center. And then the only thing you really have to worry about is Feliciano, and you kind of go from there. But interesting that I figured we were going to be on the same page with that. I don't even, when I text you the questions after that one, I was just going to be like, let's just, instead of putting which position group is the weakest, I was going to just be like, let's talk about why the offensive line scares us. That's all I was going to do. Another positive one, we'll flip it again. Which player or players have exceeded your expectations the most at this point in the year?
So
this is a hard one because there's a lot.
I'm going to say Dawson Knox. Because when we talked about, we were on the show, me, you, Greg, and Aaron, we talked about, like, you guys asked what was one of the positions that, because we were like, well, Dawson Knox, I think he has the ability to be okay. Like, he was bad as a tight end, and then we thought, okay, he could be all right. But I think he's exceeded the all right to, he could be, I mean, let's see what the, tail of the tape says towards the end of the season, but if at this rate, he could probably be one of the top 10 tight ends in the NFL by the end of the season, just based off of what we've seen. And I think that's fair. If he now he has to continue to produce. Him having a broken hand doesn't help right now.
Yeah,
but just from what we've seen, reliable hands. I mean, you see him being able to get off the line and against man coverage and so forth, and his routes, breaking off his routes. I mean, he's looking good. Like, he's looking good. He's looking like a real tight end right now. So I'm going to say I'm more impressed with Dawson Knox, just because the expectations that we had for him were not very high coming into the season. There's just, we know it takes about 3 years for a tight end to actually start, making plays and so forth. But you got to look at the context to consider where he's come from. He hasn't played the position. He's still learning the nuances of the position. So to see him just kind of, flex a little bit, especially the Kansas City game, man. It was really nice to see him have his moment.
This one was a really hard one for me because there's so many players who I'm still even now, I have my answer, but I'm still debating it. Like Gregory Rousseau, I think, is so much ahead of schedule in terms of what we thought we were going to get from him this year. Like, I don't think he's playing at an all-pro level, but I think he's playing significantly better than, I'll just speak for myself, than I thought he would be. I thought he would be more rotational than he is. He's playing at a solid level. I even probably technically, if you want to just go from a technical standpoint, for me, it's probably Spencer Brown, just because I did not think he was going to see the field whatsoever this year. And then even in the preseason, the first preseason game against the Lions, he got waxed a lot in that game. Really bad, terrible snaps that you were just like, well, it's his first game. We'll see what happens, blah, blah, blah. And the fact that he's in there giving you quality, even if it may be up and down and a little bit inconsistent at times, the fact that Spencer Brown is starting for us at right tackle isn't just a complete turnstile, is a win and is tremendous. So he's up there for me. Gregory Rousseau is up there for me. Dawson Knox is up there for me as well. I don't want to use recency bias, but Tremaine Edmunds is up there all of a sudden. Tremaine Edmunds has taken a leap these last several weeks. His coverage snaps against Kansas City were tremendous in the middle of the field. What he did in making those windows tight and hard for Mahomes to find his guys over the middle, what he did coming forward and the intensity and the physicality that he brought when he was tackling, which he also did against Tennessee when he hit Derrick Henry multiple times. Like, he brought the wood multiple times.
He did.
Like, just those pops that we haven't seen that from Tremaine Edmunds. We know the speed and the size and the length, but we haven't seen him use that speed and that size to be physical and be mean. We haven't seen those pops and those crunching hits. Even when he makes great sideline to sideline plays, he makes them, but then like wraps up the legs and twists down. It's like, ooh, good play. He doesn't make like a mean, rangy play. And he's had multiple games like that against some lower competition, but then continued to rise against Kansas City and against Tennessee as well, despite the fact that we lost to Tennessee and the defense kind of let us down towards the end there. But Tremaine Edmunds is up there for me. There's honestly a lot. There's so many. I'm going to go from a technical standpoint. Like I mentioned, I'm going to stick with Spencer Brown, even though he does make me a little nervous at times. My expectation for him, and that's just the baseline for it, I did not think he was going to play this year. And I thought if he played, I was like, something bad happened. Darrell Williams got hurt, or we're in a DEFCON. I don't know which one's worse, DEFCON 5 or 1. Someone told me once and I don't remember. Whichever one is worse. I thought if he's in there, everything's on fire, grab the kids and the wife and run because we're screwed. And he's held it down. So I'm going to go with Spencer Brown, and I really hope he continues on that trajectory. But it's fun to even have that conversation because you legitimately could pick from a good 5 to 7 players who have just stepped up. Or, you know what, honestly, I can't believe I even forgot. Star Latulele. Pass rush production from Star, not just eating double teams, getting one-on-ones and winning consistently. Like, he's been up there. I know some people in the chat were throwing up AJ Epinesa.
It's not enough tape though. It's not enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with AJ. He was my breakout guy for this year, and see, that's just unfair. I'm sorry. No, I need to go to this comment. Taryn Johnson has surprised. That's not the unfair. This is an unfair comment. If Tremaine was brilliant, we would have won the game. That's not a fair. That's not a fair comment to Tremaine, like Sean. That, man. You cannot put that loss on Tremaine Edmunds. Like, the defense holistically, and even if we wanted to put it on a grouping, I'm going to put it on the defensive line before I am Tremaine Edmunds. Especially with, I know there's someone in the chat giving Matt Milano a lot of flack. Matt Milano did not look ready to go. He looked like he was running in quicksand. Did not look like he was ready to go. Tremaine had a very good game. And I don't see. Yeah, this is a good comment from Jason, not just because it supports us. Edmunds laid a freaking smack, I'm guessing what you meant there, on Henry a couple times. How many people have you seen hit Henry in a way that looked like it surprised Henry with how hard the hit was? See, you just can't win with Tremaine Edmunds. Like, I don't know what, John, if you're still here, I would love for, and I'm not even meaning this negatively, I would love for you to put in the chat, what does Tremaine Edmunds have to do to be brilliant or to be great in your eyes? Because Sturtles, I thought he's played really great the last 2 games, and I don't know what more people want.
Can I just speak my piece on this real quick? I think as fans and you know, people who watch and cover the team, I think we forget about the mental aspect and the context of where these guys come from. Oh, we're talking about Tremaine Edmunds, who his parents are great freaking athletes. He is in a family of athletes. Just think about the pressure that to play any sport in that family. He's a perfectionist, right? And so when you see him come into the NFL at such a young age, in a first round pick, and the Bills use assets spent on him to pick him, there's a lot of pressure that comes on him, man. And not only that, but you're with a really good defensive coordinator, head coach, who makes you like Luke Kuechly. Like, just think about the pressure. So, you know, one of the things that we talk about, like you mentioned, like how, and Eric Turner even talks about how, you know, we now see Tremaine Edmunds play. He's playing without thinking now. He doesn't have to think anymore.
He's just reading and reacting.
He's reading and reacting, and it took him a while to get there. So, but the mental aspect of being a perfectionist, like that takes a toll on you. How, it was always watching him. It was like, man, he's always a step behind, or like you mentioned, he's always, I'm gonna grab you by the legs, right? We never see him like we talked about this on Hoof, or I talked about on Hoof last night. We talked about the comparison between him and Roquan Smith. We see Roquan Smith play with his hair on fire and just run through people when he tackles them. Tremaine, he won with athleticism. But again, this is a 23-year-old kid we're talking about. And now what we're seeing is that mental processing for him is starting to catch up with his athleticism. And now look at what we're seeing, right? And so I think, I'm trying to learn how to use more context when evaluating these players and these talents. Look at where these guys are coming from, right? It's easy to do it with the quarterback position, right? Because their whole life is just on display, right? We talk about Josh Allen and his upbringing, but you have to do that with every other position too. That stuff matters. And so I think we're seeing that with Tremaine Edmonds. So I think he's having a really, really good season. And I'm sorry, but if you put Derrick Henry in the backfield, I mean, he's the best back in this league. I mean, it's going to make you second guess. That's why they pay him that much money, right? I mean, come on, man. Like, these guys are human too. And do you want to tackle Derrick Henry 6'3", 240? Hell fucking no. I'm not tackling that guy. Are you kidding me? I don't care how much money you pay me, dude. I'm not doing it.
No, I'm making a business decision. I'm out.
Exactly. So it's so funny that they talk about, well, he just gets better throughout the game. I mean, that's just physics.
Yeah, everybody else wears down, and he's like, well, I'm still just 6 foot. I'm just still overbuilt like Godzilla.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. Of course he's going to get better throughout the game.
John followed up here with this comment that I put on the bottom. So for Tremaine, he wants him to make the plays more often. We know he can make plays. He just needs to make them more often. He made more splash plays in his rookie year. I think this year, I'm going to disagree with that last sentence.
Yeah.
I think he's made more splash plays this year, especially in the last 3 or 4 games. But I agree, though. The consistency piece was always his thing. He would show something on one play, and you were like, oh, my God, he's it. And then the next play, he would just take a poor angle, either under or too far over, and get cut back on or not be able to make the tackle. So I think that's fair. But I think this year, again, especially the last 3 or 4 games, he is playing in a much more consistent clip. I think he is really starting to lead this defense from a performance standpoint when you've got guys like the Bills have in the secondary, like we talked about. That's why they're our strongest position grouping. There's going to be other areas of the field that teams are going to have to pick on and attack. And then you've got another guy like Matt Milano, who I still think is the best linebacker on this team, but I also think he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. So they're like, okay, cool, let's stay away from that. Like, we can get Tremaine Edmonds in some situations and take advantage of him. People game plan for him to take advantage of him, especially with the kind of offenses we see. The Kansas City game, and granted it's one game, Kansas City's offense puts linebackers in tremendous amounts of conflict with all their window dressing and pre-snap motion and misdirection, combined with Patrick Mahomes and then Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and even Mecole Hardman, what they do in the middle, what they do in their route running and their concepts and their schemes. Linebackers are in tremendous amounts of conflict against Kansas City. Tremaine Edmonds did more than hold his own. He won reps against that offense consistently. And he's put together 4 really quality, strong games back to back to back. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's at the spot where, boom, we knew it. He's a made man. Let's give him the contract. All pro, here we come. But I don't think that he has been a liability. I don't think he's played bad. I can understand people still wanting more from him. Because again, to your point, and I think you nailed it, Sturtles, everybody knows that ceiling is so high. They heard all the potential. And they heard, oh my God, he runs a what in the 40? Oh my God, he's how tall? Oh my God, he's how young? Sean McDermott, Coach Luke Kuechly, oh my God, we traded up to get him. Man, everybody on ESPN told us how great he's going to be and what an amazing pick that is. He's going to be an all-pro right out of the gate. And when he wasn't, everybody's like, oh, what a failure. What a bust. But he's still growing mentally, physically, all that stuff. I don't want to drill it home because everybody knows it. You mentioned it already, but it does a disservice to him as a player because of how strong he's been this year. And I hate to be that person to be like, just watch the All-22 and you'll see blah, blah, blah. You got to see the All-22 and what he's doing. If you're judging him purely off of broadcast tape, that's fine because everybody has access to different things and looks at things differently and has different time. That's fine. I understand that. But when you watch the All 22, or even if you just take a look at Eric Turner's account on Twitter and watch the plays that he's showing up there, the ones that Tremaine isn't even involved in.
Yeah.
He's making plays just of his alignment, just because of his alignment, what he's doing mentally, what he's reading and reacting to. He's been a real strong guy for this defense. And I know we got on a crazy tangent here, but people need to.
They need to know that.
Yeah, man, I just feel like every time he starts to get up the mountain, it's like, but, you're just like, dude, like at a certain point.
I know.
How you just can't win with some people at a certain point. But, and I recognize the points that were made in the comment that led us here. But, I think we really need to appreciate Tremaine Edmunds a little bit more. He's, I'm sorry, I got to go here again. We always seem to give up yards over the middle and never on the outside. It's a common trend. I would also say that's
not true
NFL either. Football in general today. Last week he looked good in coverage on Cover One tape. Looked poor this week in coverage. I disagree on looking poor in coverage this week. I don't think he looked as good as he did against Kansas City. I'm not going to call him poor in coverage against Tennessee, especially given the coverage schemes and everything that was going on.
They put him in, like you mentioned, they put him in conflict.
Yes.
When you have a Derrick Henry in the backfield, and this is a Tennessee Titans team that predicates their whole offense on the play action pass game.
And what were the Bills trying to do this past game? They were running those too high looks because they wanted to play man and they wanted to try and crowd the box. Edmunds was the guy who was constantly caught in that limbo between being like, I have to make a play in the run versus I also have to make a play in the middle of the field and cover the pass. That's tremendously hard.
Right. So I think and this is why I wasn't mad, because it's like, okay, if the Bills see them in the playoffs, you already have tape. You already have a working knowledge of what they're going to do. And it's going to be, it's never going to be easy, but it's going to make it a little bit easier. You're going to know a little bit of their tendencies more. So I was okay with that. Like, put it all out there, because Tennessee, that's the best game you're going to play all season.
Correct. I'm fine with that. Next question, a little more negative again. This is our second last question. So again, for you, Mr. Sterling, which player or players have fallen below your expectations the most this year at this point in the bye week heading?
I'm going to say Gabriel Davis, just because we don't see him much, he's not called upon much just because of Manny Sands, Beasley, so I expected him to have a bigger role in the offense thus far. And maybe that's something that they're going to roll out toward as they keep going in the season. I don't know if it's an ankle injury. So it's not based off of what he's the lack thereof or his performance. It's just, I just expected a little bit more from him thus far. So, and I wanted to think about that question and not just be like, it's like being in Sunday school and every answer is Jesus, right? So I wanted to kind of just be like, man, like, I'm gonna go with Gabriel Davis here, right? That's what I'm gonna go with. So that's why I picked Gabriel Davis.
That's a really good answer. That got me. That was good. Yeah, I did. I think I loved the Manny Sanders edition, and I know Jason earlier mentioned that was one of his people who exceeded expectations. For me, it wasn't, because what he's doing isn't too far exceeding my expectations. Right. I loved Manny Sands' fit into this offense and what he's doing. I'm not going to say I knew he was going to be this good, but I thought he would be close. So he's not too far exceeding it for me. But Gabe Davis is an interesting one, because I thought he would still get more work into this offense. And I don't know if it's because of the injury, but he's almost been kind of phased out a little bit, especially with the emergence of Dawson Knox. He's almost replaced him in terms of that role and the workload that he gets. So that's a very interesting one. Oh, I like Jason's comment here before I get to mine as well. Below expectations, Harrison Phillips and Deion Dawkins. The rest I can't blame too much because they aren't always active. Very interesting take there. I am going to stay on the offensive line, and I'm going to go with Cody Ford. What?
Did you have high expectations for Cody Ford?
No, but I thought he would be starting. I thought he would. My expectation, I wasn't thinking he was going to be an all-pro, and I wasn't thinking,
I know you didn't think that.
No, but I definitely didn't think that, okay, he's going to be riding pine like 4 weeks into the year. I definitely didn't think he would get benched to the point that we had to put Spencer Brown in. That's the reason. Like, again, it's all that expectation. I wasn't expecting him to be like Quentin Nelson or Wyatt Teller, but I was expecting him to start for this team, especially after what I saw in the preseason. I was really encouraged. I think a lot of us were. He looked good.
For sure.
He looked
I was
fluid.
Too.
And even more so, I guess, considering the injury he's coming off of. Like, he looked ahead of schedule. You know, you heard, granted, a lot of it's cliche, but you heard how hard he worked in the offseason and everything he did. And then what was the interview after the Lions preseason game, how excited he was and everything. And I was like, oh man, it's all clicking. I don't think he's going to be a stud, but I think he's going to be a capable starter. We're okay. And now to the point that he's not even on the field. That's the one that's been, so I don't want to put it completely on him that like, well, he's been absolutely terrible and awful, but it fell below my expectations because I expected him to be a starting level guard on this team. I thought he'd be the fourth best offensive lineman on this team. And the fact that he's just completely out of it. Oh, this is an interesting one as well. I didn't even think special teams. Jason said I expected way better from Hawk. I don't know really what I thought from him, but I'm definitely not liking the inconsistency. We get a boom kick one time, and the next time we get a 25-yarder that gets shanked. I don't like the inconsistency, but I like where your head's at in special teams.
Yeah.
Oh, nervous. Last question as we start to wrap up, and then you get to ask me your question.
Yes, sir.
Our last question here, and I want to see what people have in the chat here as well. I'm interested to see people's answers. Which AFC team do you want to avoid the most in the playoffs, Sterling?
Kansas City. Kansas City.
Good answer.
They're still, you know, I mean, I know they're having issues on defense, but Patrick Mahomes and the array of weapons and Andy Reid coaching, that worries me. You know, Honey Badger didn't have a great game. He's kind of been off this year, but Honey Badger can wreck a game. Chris Jones healthy when his wrist is good. I mean, these guys can take over a game, and they don't have to do much because Patrick Mahomes and his offense is so great. But it goes to show you how much that offense is missing Sammy Watkins. That the Bills were able to use man coverage in that game. And it's just my opinion that if they had Sammy Watkins, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Sammy Watkins presents too much of a challenge in terms of a route running ability and, you know, a yak ability that I don't think that, you know, with their array of weapons that they already have, losing Sammy Watkins, I think hurts them a little bit. I think he did more for that offense than people are giving him credit for.
Oh, very interesting point on Sammy Watkins. I'm going to go with Kansas City as well. Like, I really like what Baltimore's doing, and Nate really diagrammed a whole bunch of good stuff that they're doing offensively. And the fact that their defense is still playing significantly well, considering all of the injuries that they've had, is impressive, but it's still going to be Tennessee. It's still going to be Kansas City for me. For all the people who are like kind of putting the nail in the coffin and not worrying about them and thinking like, oh, they're done. We beat them. We got the recipe. We got the formula. I just don't want to face Kansas City again in a one-off game on any given Sunday. When they click, like, for example, look at what happened with Tennessee, right? When they clicked on offense. They clicked really what they wanted, both offense and defense, on Monday against the Bills. They clicked. We still probably should have won that game, and we didn't even play that good. Right. If Kansas City clicks, you get run out the gym. There is no like, well, you have a chance to still win it at the end. Nope, you're out. You're done. And I don't want to have that in a one-off game. There are some other teams that running games travel everywhere you go. So Tennessee presents an interesting problem. Cleveland, if they're healthy, presents an interesting problem. Baltimore, especially if Lamar continues to be set up for success like he has been. But the Bills have traditionally played Lamar well and tough, even when we lost to them a couple years ago. So there are some interesting candidates. But yeah, for me, it's Kansas City, hands down. Whoever plays Kansas City in the playoffs, I will root for that other team to knock them out and beat them. I will take my chances with any team that is not the Chiefs. And that doesn't mean I don't think we can beat them again. And that doesn't mean that I think if we play them, we're done. But I would gladly take my chances with literally any other team in the AFC other than the Kansas City Chiefs.
And the sad thing is, and if the Bills don't get that number one seed, there's a good chance you could see Kansas City round one. That is a very scary and sobering thought. I don't want to see it.
I don't like that. Jason always has a lot of great takes here, but this one, KC will correct their mistakes and be such a hard matchup the second time around. That's it too. Sterling, you mentioned it. Like, you got a coach like Andy Reid. You have I still don't know how Eric Bieniemy is not a head coach because he's phenomenal. And Steve Spagnuolo is still a really good defensive coordinator. Like, you've got guys in the coaching staff who are really great at course correcting and adjustments. And for as much tape as we have on them and we know what worked this time, it's the same thing in that chess match. And they've got guys who really know how to play chess over there. Combined with, if they've got, like, to your point, like Tyrann Mathieu, maybe he is the honey badger the next time. Maybe Chris Jones is healthy and actually plays. And even if he plays, maybe even if his wrist is still banged up and he's not 100% Chris Jones, but 80% Chris Jones is still probably better than anything else the Chiefs have on that line. Or maybe they rest him further and he's 100% Chris Jones, who we saw absolutely wreck the Bills' offensive line in the playoffs last year, especially John Feliciano. Yeah, I would take – I recognize there's a lot for all the teams. I mean, especially, too, once you get into the playoffs, everybody's tough. There is no easy win. And coming into this year, we already knew the AFC was going to be a dogfight. Like, there's so many good teams. But yeah, I would take my chances with anyone that is not the Kansas City Chiefs.
Absolutely.
And okay, now I've been waiting this whole time. I need to know your question.
All right, so we're gonna go to Dreamland a little bit. Okay. So we're 4-2. We obviously have holes. You can look at both sides of the ball. You can see some holes. Okay. We have a gambling GM. I think you know where I'm going with this. Now,
trade for Tyrod Taylor.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Yes. Okay, so Harrison Phillips played last night.
Okay.
Mario Addison. Okay. Do you think, so this is a twofold question.
Okay.
One, do you think, I think Harrison Phillips and Mario Addison are guys that are on the trade block. Okay. I think Boogie Basham and Epinesa, I think they deserve more time. I don't think they should have been sat yesterday.
Okay.
Do you think that Brandon Beane was maybe showcasing Harrison Phillips and Mario Addison?
Ooh, interesting.
Trade deadline's November 2nd.
Okay.
We're on a bye this week. Then you got a game against – I mean, it's starting to roll. And you know how meticulous and how much they overthink stuff, right? They're always a step ahead of us. Do you think that maybe – and now – this, mind you, 2 weeks ago, there was a rumor that, teams are already calling the Bills about defensive line help, right? So we know they're stacked in that room. We also know that the Bills, they're not going to get an offensive lineman. Those don't grow on trees. But I would venture to say that the Bills could use running back help, and they could use a real possession wide receiver with yards after catch ability, or maybe another tight end. So what say you? So are those players being showcased to be shipped around? And if you had to trade for a player that's an attainable player, who would it be?
Oh, wow. One, I guess this is probably the easier part of it. I think Brandon Beane and the coaching staff as a whole, I don't think they're ever satisfied with anything ever.
Exactly.
So I think trade possibilities are always an option. I think right now, if someone called, granted, certain people are untouchable, but I don't think they'd hang up on anyone. If someone called right now and was like, hey, we want to offer you a trade for Stephon Diggs, I think Beane would be like, in his head, he'd be like, I'm not doing that. But I think he would still be like, okay, what do you got? Like, he's always looking for something, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, whether it's trades. They are never satisfied. They are always looking for ways to tweak and adjust. So I think the idea of a trade, and showcasing guys is a potential possibility. The only thing that gets me with showcasing is regular season pieces. They did it with Sammy Watkins in the preseason when they first took the Bills over. I don't know if they'd risk a showcase in the regular season, but honestly, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Like, I don't, what's Greg's statement? The non-zero chance. Like, I think there's a non-zero chance of that. Like, I could see that being like, okay, showcase or working on some things. I don't think they'll ever stand pat for anything ever. I think they will always look for an upgrade. Position to trade for. Oh, I think they should trade for Alvin Kamara. No, you know what? Prior to how things have, I still
That's tough, right?
It is super tough. I still want another. I'm going to look at it position wise first. I still would like another corner I still want something at corner. Maybe I'm still on it from the draft. I still want some reinforcement there at corner too. I would still like that.
But that's not going to happen.
No, I know that's not going to happen. In a perfect world, again, they don't grow on trees. Give me a trade for an offensive lineman. Give me a guard. I want reinforcement.
But you're not going to get that either, and you know it.
Oh, most real, and so it's just from like a realistic perspective, right?
From a realistic perspective, because we know. I mean, obviously, I would love another cornerback. I would love a guard, but you're not getting that, right? Unless you're going to give up big assets, and I don't see Brandon Beane giving up large assets for a guy.
No, and I don't think there's any cap casualty type of people that are there now where it's like, okay, cool, let's throw a 6th-round pick for so-and-so and we can get him and he can start at guard. Like teams aren't trading starting caliber offensive linemen at the trade deadline. You're getting like something different. I think running back is probably the most realistic out of the positions you laid out.
Okay.
That's probably the most realistic because I feel like you can get a running back at the trade deadline easier than you can again, it's all based on the position of need that the Bills have. Like, I think it's much harder to get a guard or a corner than it is to get a running back, especially because a lot of teams don't really value them tremendously. You can kind of get them depending on what you got going on.
Right. So, with that being said, so if you were to trade for a running back, that's attainable. Do you think? Who would it be?
Oh man, I don't know who I think is attainable.
I'll tell you who I think.
Okay.
Because look, man, I had a dream about this. So if you guys want to flame me, go right ahead. I don't care. But this is just a dream. Okay. And then I thought about, I was like, you know what? That's not bad. And I'm going to tell you, Ezekiel Elliott.
Whoa. You think he's attainable? Okay, tell me.
Think about it. Large contract.
How much is left? I need to see what's on his contract. Continue.
Yeah, look up his contract. And then you have a Pollard is really good. And they have a really good offensive line. He's expendable.
But they're 5-1. They're feeling they're feeling themselves. They're looking good.
But again, Pollard is really good. He's good, man. And you got Dak is running the show. You can't have it all. Like, you're not going to be able to keep Zeke. And I mean, long term, he's a running back, man.
He's got. So in 2022, go ahead.
Do you mean to tell me that Ezekiel Elliott with the Bills in this offense? Oh my God.
He has a cap hit in 2022 of $18.2 million. In 2023, he has a potential out, but it comes with $11.8 million in dead cap. I don't think the contract works.
The contract might not work, but we've seen stuff like this go down where they just make it work. That was just the first running back that I thought of. Call me crazy. I don't think it's going to happen, but.
And last year, I mean, what were they? It was down to them in Kansas City for Le'Veon Bell.
Right.
They aren't afraid to upgrade at any position. I think you could see an upgrade at the running back position potentially. I like Zach Moss more than I do Singletary, but I like Singletary too. I'm okay with the combo, but if we could upgrade to a legit, I tell you, it's a crazy one, but then he ended up getting hurt. The one that I thought was like the not pipe dream, but like a wild scenario that could potentially have something happen, but that still was unlikely. Going into the season, I thought it would be Saquon Barkley. I was like, Bills trade for him, but then they just don't re-sign him. He's still on that rookie deal. You use him for these next couple years, boom, good. But then he got hurt again. That was my long shot that has a tinge of possibility, but still not likely. But I could see them going after an RB. Zeke.
I just think it's one of those things where the Bills, Super Bowl window, whatever people think about it. I just think, man, you are at a spot right now where if you add a player of that caliber to this offense at that position,
could take you over the top.
Whew, I'm telling you, and we've seen teams do it before. It's not this so crazy of an idea. It's not going to happen, but it was just something to think about. Like, if you look at the wide receiver position, I would throw in Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham's a guy.
What about Michael Thomas?
His contract
is heavy too.
His contract is heavy, and the injuries and both Odell Beckham and Michael Thomas, the injury history scares me, but Odell Beckham's a guy I think you could have for a 4th or 5th round pick at this point.
I think you could give them $5 and they trade you Odell Beckham.
Right. and a 2-pack of wings.
I was gonna say a side of fries. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Not 6 or 12 wings or 8, but 2 or 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Yeah,
you mean like you mean like 20 or 30? Nope, just 2 or 3 wings.
Just 2 or 3.
We'll take it.
Sauce.
$5.
Yeah.
No sauce. Dry as hell. It's fine. Yep, take it. Thank you so much. Pleasure doing business with you. And then you guys have like maybe a stick of gum. Yeah, we'll take it. That's fine.
These are the conversations where it'd be great to have Greg in the room because he likes to go to Dreamland with me and just be crazy. Okay, Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's a guy that, I mean, he's been rumored for a long time. I mean, you know, they're probably going to move on from him, but I think that's another guy, given Dawson Knox his injury recently, that's probably a guy that they can look at.
I think that's decent, not even decently. I think that's at worst like a 50-50 type of shot. If Knox is going to be, I know the fractured hand, and they said it would be like, that's not something long-term they're worried about.
2 or 3 weeks,
come,
probably.
Yep. But that's something that is potentially sticking in their craw, or he's not the same. I'd be fine. I think you could get Evan Ingram realistically for like a 6th-round pick.
Right.
Maybe a 5th at the highest. Do I want to give that up? Are you okay with Tommy Sweeney? But
OJ Howard?
I would love OJ Howard.
3rd?
I would take OJ Howard before I would take Evan Ingram.
That's a 3rd-round pick to me, though.
OJ. I wonder if it's so weird to me and I haven't watched enough of his tape in Tampa, but I really liked him coming out of Bama, and I thought he was going to be something sweet with Tampa Bay, and he just has not clicked, and I don't know what it is. Like, I think the talent is there. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if he's just not putting the work in and he's not a pro. But I would take a flyer on OJ Howard, and I wonder what value Arians is smart, you know, but I feel like you could throw like a 6th-round pick at OJ Howard and potentially nab OJ Howard back.
I mean,
I would take Howard over Evan Ingram every single day of the week.
Oh, for sure. But, you know, these are guys that I think could realistic options that I think the Bills could, you know, they don't have to mortgage the future to get a guy like that. And again, you know, let's say you get a 5th or 6th-round pick for a Mario Addison. I mean, you know, because you're not going to see a player-for-player trade, obviously.
No, it's going to be picks and things like that. And unless you try to go the indirect route and you trade a player for a pick and then flip that pick for another player that you had in mind or something like that. I mean, the trade deadline will be interesting because
something's going to happen.
It's
going to happen.
Something's
going to happen.
There are some areas in which this team can get better, and then there's the odds of like how realistic it is to acquire. Like, you mentioned it earlier, like, oh man, like it would be awesome if they could get better at guard and or offensive line in general. And then it's like, well, who's trading like starting caliber dudes at the deadline like that? And same thing with corner and certain positions. I think a position like running back or tight end is more likely, but then you're kicking into like, okay, like you bring in a tight end. How healthy is Dawson Knox? Does he return? Do you really need that investment? So on and so forth. But to your point and to mine earlier, I don't think they're ever standing pat with this roster. I think they're always looking for a way to upgrade and get better 1,000%. So something's gonna happen, man. And you know what's funny is that it seems like over the past few years we always hear intense rumors with the Bills being involved at the trade deadline. That's true.
You know Brandon Beane is he's not going to make a move that mortgages the future. That's not smart. He's always going to try to, you know, but so you know that they're going to be in a place somewhere. You just know it, right? And I'm interested to see what rumors or if he even pulls a trigger on something. You know, this is the time to do it. I mean, you are right there knocking on Super Bowl door.
You got a window. I think beating Kansas City the way they did just open that window further for them to think like, man, this window is legit. Let's we already wanted to maybe do something and we know our philosophy. Man, screw it. Let's go after it even harder.
Yep.
I don't doubt it. That was a good question. I liked it. That was a perfect way to start to wrap this up as I throw up the toodles, you guys there. That was a good question. I was on pins and needles the whole time. I was like, what is this question? Everything we were talking about, I was like, what could it be? Like, you looked so mischievous when you were mentioning it and you had that like Cheshire cat grin. And I was like, what is it? What is it? Man, this episode was awesome. Nate Tice in the first hour of the show. I didn't think he was able. Yeah, he was awesome. I didn't initially we planned for a half hour. I thought that was stretching it. And then I was like, okay, 45 minutes. And you stayed for basically like a full hour. Dude was phenomenal in every way. You chilling in the green room, just like maxing out, relaxing, all cool, while shooting some people outside of school. You're just chilling and letting us kind of do that thing. And then he leaves. You hit the ground running. We had a hell of a back end of the show with you and I. I think this is your first solo appearance on Disguise Coverage, is it not?
I think so. It is.
Yeah, and it's been a fun one. I appreciate you stopping by. Everyone at this point should know who you are, but just in case, let them know who you are, what you do, where they can find you, all that stuff.
Oh man, if you guys are already here, it's on the Cover One Network. That
is true.
Furrowh Sterling, right? That's my Twitter handle, so you can find me there. I'm not as active, or I don't say too much on the Twitter, but I'm always watching, right? But my show is on Tuesday nights. It's the Hoof Live podcast. I have co-hosts Anthony and Eric. We just kind of chop it up there, just do our thing. But I am a big fan of you, Ant. I'm like one of your biggest fans, bro, and I love what you do. And I'm pleased and just, man, I'm just like thankful that you asked me to be on your show tonight.
I told you when we did after that Four Horsemen episode earlier, I was like, we're gonna get you back at some point this year, and I already had it kind of cooking in the works. Ideally, I wanted to bring the Four Horsemen alignment back together, but Greg was unable, and Aaron was unable, and I was like, that's fine. Me and Sterls are gonna rock this. You
kill it.
You are fantastic. You deserve more shine and more credit than you already get because you're awesome. And yeah, you're a tremendous guest tonight, and thank you for being available, and thank you for chilling, waiting in the green room. Thank you for being awesome and bringing the heat as soon as we came through. Thank you for the fun question. You kept me on my toes. I legit the whole time, even when I was like speaking in my head, I was just like, what is it? What is it? But no, you were great. Everybody riding with us live on this episode was great tonight. Thank you so much. I know the change in time was different, the 6 p.m. Eastern start time tonight versus the 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for all you who were riding with me live. There were a lot of you guys who started with us at 6 and have been riding for this entire 2 hours, 14 minutes. A bit of a longer episode than normal, but I think it was warranted given the quality of guests that we had on tonight's show. Thank you so much. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. Drop a like on this video. I say it every week. I know it sounds corny, but those likes and especially the rates and reviews and subscriptions, they go a long way towards helping us track and trend and getting in front of more eyes, which is ideally, what we're trying to do here. And it means a lot to us. Thank you very much for anybody who listened, watched live. If you're listening or watching later, thank you very much for your listen, your download, whatever have you. Thank you for any kind words or how you pay it forward to tell people about Cover One, about Disguise Coverage, anything and everything. Also want to mention, and as we start to wrap up here, Underdog Fantasy, our proud partnership that we still have going on with them. Use promo code COVER1. That's all one word, cover, and then the number 1 when you download the Underdog Fantasy app, and you're going to get $10 from them when you deposit $10. So you double your investment right there and get a free $10. Go do that. I mentioned One Pie Pizza, tremendous people, tremendous pizza, a great sponsor and friend of the show and friend of the brand. Also got really something cool working with them that's Cover One related coming out in November. The online menu for them is in the description of this episode. And lastly, Cover One Premium. Awesome membership, access to the best Slack channel in the world, access to us constantly. It's basically like having our phone numbers and just constant DMs and messages back and forth. The Slack channel is phenomenal. You get access to premium content on the website. You get in-game breakdowns. You get so much for the Cover One Premium subscription and membership. That link is also in the episode description here. Go check all that out. I cannot possibly thank, I say it every week, but I cannot possibly thank everybody who watched and listened to this episode. Thank you so much. I can never thank you and tell you how much it means to me. Same thing to you, Sterls, for dropping by, crushing this episode in the back half with me. And to Mr. Nate Tice, who I started this episode off with. He's amazing. His work makes me smarter, makes me a better fan, makes me a better analyst of the game, and helps me to understand. He's phenomenal. This episode was amazing in every way. I appreciate anybody and everybody. Thank you so much. Hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe and are all doing well. I will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.